Samsung's latest, greatest phablet is here, and it just might be the best big phone ever. We'll talk about that, but it's not the only large format gadget we're chatting up this week. Google's next generation Nexus is finally official in both smartphone and tablet forms from HTC and Motorola. Exciting stuff. And Apple has a new device that can make your pencils even thinner. And a couple new tablets, too. All that plus your listener mail in the block ahead on episode 118 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast where we discuss news and opinion from the world of mobile technology, from smartphones to tablets to wearables and beyond. All that stuff you wished you had when you were a kid. From Boston, Massachusetts, where the Halls are Fanuel and the Adams is Samuel, I'm Michael Fisher. I'm joined today by a man so deep in the news stream his hair is windswept. Pocketnow's chief news editor, Stephen Shank. Welcome back, sir.
I woke up with it like this today.
Whatever.
I don't know what's going on, man.
Spend 45 minutes making it great. Also joining us, he's no stranger to the podcast or to the musical stylings of Depeche Mode. From Engadget, Brad Molen. Welcome back, friend.
Hello, and I may not be a stranger, but I can be strange sometimes.
And you
and
have
I do
some danger,
love
too.
From Depeche Mode.
And finally, we've shared German burgers together, so it only makes sense to take our friendship to the next level. Talking about smartphones on the internet. From Greenbot, Florence Ion. Welcome to the Weekly, Flo.
It was a tofu burger on my end, by the way.
I was gonna say, I was hoping you would make that clear.
I just raced everybody with the tofu burger.
I'm surprised those are allowed in Germany.
Listen, we were under the train tracks. Everyone was having a great time.
It was burgers from Burgermeister, which used to be a porta potty.
Under the train tracks?
Literally under the train tracks. Yeah. I think it was on Anthony Bourdain, right?
Yep, it was on No Reservations.
Oh, okay. I heard the ding in my ear, and I thought Taylor Martin was joining us, because he might join us, but in fact it was just Brad Molen adding After Effects. My watch is ringing, and it says FedEx on it. I can't answer it right now, so I hope that's not important. And I need to tell
anything fun?
I'm not that I know of, but they're being very insistent. Listen, everyone, before we get into this week's show, I want to let everyone know that the Pocketnow Weekly is brought to you by Themer, which simply put is a dream come true for anyone who wants to spice up their Android smartphone without buying a new Android smartphone. It's an app that lets you totally revamp the phone's software experience with tons of home screen themes, HD wallpaper, fancy icons, useful widgets, all that. And it's all bundled up in easy-to-download packages. You don't need root, you don't need cables, you don't need to install app after app. You just browse themes, tap, and apply. It's radical. It's prodigious. And best of all, it's free. Give it a try. You've got nothing to lose. Search Google Play for Themer. That's Themer. What do you say we actually get to talking about technology, guys?
Can I talk really quickly?
I want you to talk. I've been talking for so long that I'm tired of talking.
I'm totally
Now you're choking. Now the Pocketnow Weekly is Ion. What is happening?
Well, at least there's no silence.
You're right. There's no dead air allowed, so just coughing is preferable.
It's
really on-air fatality is great for ratings.
So what were you going to say, Flo?
I was just talking about acidic apple juice.
Oh.
Sorry.
I just ate an apple before we come over. That's all right. No worries. The first item of business, because Brad has to go soon, within the first hour, is we want to talk about this most massive device that launched this week. The Galaxy Note 4 in the United States is actually launching today, which is, if you believe my lies, which is why I held the review until today. That's not true. It's
sure it was.
2 hours ago. Yeah. But our review is up, and Engadget's review is up, Greenbot's review is up. I just got done reading Brad's and Flo's reviews, and we are here to talk about it. We're here to take your questions, listeners. If you're watching the show live, toss them in on the Q&A so that we can answer them live on the air.
Did it take you 2 hours?
A little bit of an echo there.
Yeah, I just had to mute Jules' channel there. Did it take me 2 hours to do what, Brad?
To read our reviews. They were lengthy.
Who had the longest? This is a nice contest.
Yeah, I know. Do you know a word count on yours?
4,500 to 5,000, somewhere in there.
You're in the lead.
Wow. Yeah, well, you got us beat. I was about 3,500, 3,600, and Flo, I think, was probably around 2,500, if I'm guessing right.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to write super long because I really could ramble on forever because I was sort of trained that way. So I had to rein it in.
I understand.
Brevity is a virtue.
Same boat. Yeah, it really is.
It's really hard for me because I love to talk, and my editor's like, cut, girl, what are you doing rambling on about stuff here? So.
Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to Steven because Steven is the one who edits my reviews, and I've been meaning to say to him, look, listen, man, don't let me get away with this shit. I just used 800 words to say
exactly
something.
what I say is you got to cut it down, girl, and you never listen.
That's true. You say that during our hairstyle conversations, and I don't know what's going on anymore.
You just do your GQ video, and you're good, right? Like you just do your whole...
All you have to do is pout openly at the camera, and then you've got it nailed.
You gotta be like this.
That's the rub.
Oh.
Oh, didn't see you there.
So, I feel like my impression? That was a very good impression.
It was a pretty good one. I want to freeze frame it. So we all have Note 4s on the air, listeners. So if you want to, as I say, you want to send in your questions, this serves as our Gadgets in Hand segment as well. And guys, this is the problem that I ran into when I wanted to start this review, and it's often a problem with the Note. I didn't know where to start because it's such a beast. It's nothing but a pile of features. And you have to determine which ones are the most important and which ones are great and which ones suck, as usual. But there are so many of them. It's daunting when you review a Note. I mean, how was the experience for you guys? And you know, take it. Flo, we'll start with you because you haven't been on the show before.
I just play slot machine games because I was in Vegas when I got the phone.
But you can't win money if you're playing on your phone.
I know, but I finally discovered how to play Deuces Wild. I just spent time learning it, so I just downloaded a Deuces Wild game, and
is
that's
this a
all
card game? Is this Deuces Wild? Is that
video poker essentially? And then I found out that if you go to MyVegas, like the MyVegas apps, you can get a bunch of points to get discounts at the different casinos and hotels in Vegas. So I just started using the phone to do all of that.
The blossoming addiction. It's great.
Now, does that app support? Is that app supported by multi-window? Can you run that app while you're running other things?
Oh my gosh, I didn't try.
Yeah, probably
they don't. They should.
Yeah,
because that is like the ultimate multitask. Oh, I'm just going to do my work while I play some slots.
Making money from two ways at once.
We're journalists. I
Use
look
case
for
scenario
whenever I can get it.
I like when Flo was that selfie that you included in your review that included all of us was really quite nice. I liked that.
I remember that night I was like, Brad, do you think I should post this on Instagram, or will that make Sam so bad? And he's like, you probably shouldn't do that. And I was like, okay, you're right. I love the picture.
Wise decision.
I just love the picture so much. I wanted to post it and be like, look, I have friends, but I had to wait.
Look, everyone, we have friends in the meet space, and we talk about mobile phones in person. It's lovely.
Did you Instagram it once it was proper to do so?
No, because I just put it in my review, so I'm like, I think that's enough. Let's not overdo it.
It's out there, yeah.
I think that's awesome. Now that I've actually seen it a week after, or days after you told me it was there, I'm going to share it with everyone. But let's talk about that. So the multi-window thing, I sort of wanted to bring that up, but I now you have me thinking about the camera on this thing. Like I say, it is just a massive pile of things to talk about, and I want to start by saying that I think this is probably the best camera I've seen on a Samsung device.
Yes.
Did you just spin at the slots again?
Yeah, I turned it on. Sorry. I have to get my bonus. I'm trying to see if it does multi-window.
Oh, I guarantee you it doesn't. See, the problem with multi-window is that it doesn't support. Apps have to be coded to accept it, and I don't know what the architecture is like on that, because one of my favorite things to use multi-window with in the past was Twitter, and you cannot do that currently on this software build, even though Samsung tells us it's coming. So, I mean,
you know what? You can do Facebook, and it doesn't work very well. It's actually kind of frustrating.
This is one of my frustrations with multi-window, and that is one of my favorite features ever on Samsung devices, especially the Note, where it was sort of which pioneered it. But yeah, when you're doing Hangouts in conjunction with anything, and you get a Hangouts message, you're like, okay, sweet, now I want to respond to it. And when you respond, because the phone needs room for the keyboard, it bumps Hangouts out of the way, puts the keyboard in there, and then it kind of gets confused about what you want to do. So it can be really stuttery, and it's like, come on, this could be so great. And I feel like we were saying this back with the Note 2 even, and it's like these problems still haven't really been resolved. So that's a little on the frustrating side. But
multitasking.
Yeah, I liked your explosive call out on that. But do you guys? Am I the only one who uses multi-window on a regular basis, or what? I mean, when you guys have the Note, when you're done with the review, do you continue to use the Note at all? Do you actually use more than one app at a time, or am I just a shill for this paradigm that no one else cares about?
Samsung fanboy. Yeah, we know how it is.
My problem is that I have Verizon, and I don't usually get review units on Verizon. I mean, that's just the honest truth. So I have to stick to whatever I'm using at the time. So I can't really use it afterward. And plus, I actually make phone calls, so I can't just use whatever the review unit I have, because people are actually calling me.
You don't use Google Voice? You work for an Android-centric site, and you don't use Google Voice to have one phone number?
I've had the same number since 1996.
What?
So it used
to Google Voice?
Because I didn't do that when I was supposed to, 8 years ago or whatever.
And now it's just too late.
And now it's just too late. Now I just have a 415 number. I don't even know.
Obsolete, and it doesn't support MMS, especially if you're on Verizon. It would be a big pain in the ass. Don't do it. Don't listen.
Look. Flo shunned Google Voice back when shunning Google Voice was cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Flo was on top of that, before any of us knew what was what.
Yeah.
So, all right. In that case, we'll get off multi-window for a second. Listeners, if you have some input on that, send it to us. But
if I may, Michael, before we move on, I just want to say I use it semi-regularly. It just kind of depends on the use case, right? So there are just some times where I want to have the full screen for whatever purpose, if I am scrolling through a whole bunch of different content, I have one particular website, for example, that I want to read, or a full Twitter feed. Okay, it makes sense to just get rid of the multi-window, but there are those times where it's well, I'm expecting this email to come in, or what if I need to refer back to some sort of link while I'm doing my email. It's those kind of situations where it really does come in handy, because otherwise I have to exit all the way out and then come back in. So I do agree that from a user experience and user interface standpoint, there certainly could be some room for improvement, and it just seems like Samsung enjoys consistency a little too much, right? I think that's one of the biggest problems that most of us have with TouchWiz is it's pretty much the same. You look at the home screen on a Note 4, and it looks exactly the same as the home screen on the original Note.
It does. It's a little bit of a letdown right at first, because you think it's going to be identical, and it's not necessarily, but it sure looks
exactly.
Yes.
But you kind of have to do that, though, because when you think about the Android users that are using Samsung phones, I mean, a lot of them are people who didn't, I would assume, are people who didn't quite want the iPhone but wanted the Android experience, and they like Samsung's little blue TouchWiz, and that's what they've been using since day one. I think they're afraid of scaring off those users, that user base that they've established.
This is a good counterpoint that we don't get very often, because sometimes everyone is susceptible to lock in a little bit, and we kind of get stuck in our little bubble of the skins are kind of burdensome. And if you have to have a skin, you'd probably prefer not to have TouchWiz, because it's more bloaty, and it's aesthetically not as pleasing as some of the
my dad loves it. That's how my dad can distinguish a Samsung phone. That's how, seriously.
Your dad loves TouchWiz?
Well, yeah. I mean, he has an iPhone.
That's a sentence I've never heard uttered on 118
episodes of this podcast. He's an Eastern European man, so of course he's I don't like change, so
But this is why Samsung loves consistency, right? Is because of these users. It means a more seamless, to use the marketing term, a seamless experience from one Note to the next Note. So that way, people go from the Note 2, and when it's time for them to upgrade after 2 years, they go to the Note 4. Well, they don't have to spend all this time to refigure out how to use their phone. They're like, oh, okay, well, this looks familiar to me. So I get that, but there's also a need to at least recognize when you should be inconsistent. You should make some changes here and there. And I think Samsung's still struggling to figure out the balance, because you take a look at many of the elements on TouchWiz today, just like the bubbly kind of look, with the screen, the settings menu, for example. You compare that to a lot of the rest of the interface, and it just doesn't seem to mesh up. So it seems like Samsung's still struggling to figure out, okay, well, how do we make this a good experience across the board while keeping it consistent and making change at the same time.
The analogy I used when we saw this version of TouchWiz launch on the Galaxy S5 was that it's like, wow, I really liked where Samsung was going with this idea. I wish they hadn't released it at a point that looks like halfway through the development cycle, because it looks like a sort of a half-finished transition to me, and it still looks like that on the Note to me, despite the fact that there's been 6 intervening months between these devices. So it's
I disagree with you, Mr. Fisher, because if you look at the settings menu on the Note 4, it doesn't have that weirdo, like the big long list of icons that came on the GS5. Like, I even wrote that in my GS5 review. I thought that was horrid. I did not think that was a good idea for Samsung
liked it.
to do.
I agree with you. I like the floating bubbles. I think the floating bubbles are good looking. Now there's a list now I don't know what to do with.
For me, it was not intuitive. Now they just have between tab view and the original Android list view. Furthermore, what Samsung is doing with TouchWiz, I think, mirrors a lot of what Apple has done with iOS, because you don't want to scare off all of the loyal user base that you've had for so long. And I think the other manufacturers can change what they've been doing, like LG, because they don't have all that. They don't have all that established user base. They don't have the people that are like, this is the the LG and the HTC I know and love. No, they're still trying to poach people from the
Counterpoint, Counterpoint. iOS 7.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say.
Yeah, but that was, they had to change it because, for God's sake, it was like super archaic. Like, come on, Apple.
That's a good indication, though, that they recognize that change needs to be made, but not everybody is going to be receptive to that change, and it takes a while to people to adjust to that. Like, I know so many people are like, oh, this is just so ugly, like, why don't they bring it back? But you don't hear them complain about it anymore now that it's been a year or so since iOS 7 initially came out, and now we have iOS 8. Like, I think people finally come to accept the fact that they have moved on, and they've become used to the new interface. But it does take time, and I think that's one reason why Samsung gets scared of that change is, if we do it all at once, then, how many people are we going to scare off and have them move over to Apple or HTC or some other manufacturer?
Yeah, and Samsung is not. It's not. Oh, sorry, Stephen. Go ahead.
I feel like we're talking about different kinds of users here, and there's some interesting contrast. There's these people who are just going to accept whatever they can get because maybe they don't want an Apple, they want Android, and they're just going to take the most popular thing out there and learn to deal with it. But then there's us. We have these really strong opinions about all the various UIs out there. I don't think people like Flo's dad necessarily fall into that latter category, and they know what they like because it's familiar to them. I'm not sure there would be such an objection to Samsung doing things different. There might be this stutter at first when they get used to it, but they're the easy ones. They're going to take what they're given and just learn to work with it. So I think Samsung has maybe a little more leeway than we give it credit for as far as what it could do to shake things up if it wanted to.
And furthermore, we're not talking about a reinvention of an entire UI paradigm here. I'm not talking about ditching the home screen and the widgets and the app tray and all that stuff. We're just talking about making it a little more modern. So when you open the app tray, it just doesn't seem like this floating field of...
It sounds like the objections that I'm hearing are about layout and just aesthetics and less functionality. So it seems like an easy thing to fix.
Look at this background I added. Isn't that not pretty? That's from an icon pack.
It looks very Sony.
Flo is holding up a very clean, a very stark icon pack, and I assume this doesn't impact any of your functionality at all, right?
No, but then look at this nice little okay, sorry, I don't know if you guys can see this. Look at this background, and that's actually my email. Please don't read any of that.
It's overexposed anyway.
Looks like you need to update your PayPal information.
Look at the dialer, which you can actually see my boyfriend's phone number. Actually, you should call him. It's cool. But look at this dialer, though. It's so archaic.
It's horrid. Yes, exactly. And there are elements of that throughout. This is what I'm talking about now.
It doesn't match this metallic aesthetic right here. Look at this.
It does not match the beauty of the hardware. I completely agree. Now, I want to say rather than just I don't want to sit here and trash Samsung for TouchWiz, which is this old thing.
We're objective.
They have not left it completely untouched. A lot of the widgets that used to be these vibrant kind of really, really cartoony elements are now transparent. They're more modern. My Magazine has been reinvented into, it's been replaced by Flipboard Briefing, which is just so much better.
Exactly what it was. I'm sorry, before you.
Architecturally, yes, but my magazine looked incredibly archaic compared to what Flipboard briefing looks like now. And you still have to wait for the damn page to load every time you swipe over to it. So.
Don't even get me started on that.
God. And well, this leads us to performance, because we touched on this a second ago, and you guys, I think, both came to a different conclusion than I did. Brad, you were talking about how you were surprised by the responsiveness of this device, and I think, Flo, you said something similar. I don't see that this is any different than my experience with the Note 2 and the Note 3, which is on day 1 I felt the same way. On day 2 I sort of was at 90%. By the end of the review period I was like, oh, so I'm closing the camera, so that means you need to redraw the home screen for 8 seconds for some reason. Like, TouchWiz always does this to me, and that's my main objection to it now. It's no longer just aesthetics, it's that its performance sucks, even on the best silicon that I think exists.
It's really heavy. It's a really heavy.
And you're using the Snapdragon version, yeah?
Yeah, the 805. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Exynos would be even worse. Yeah.
Maybe you, Michael, you use it harder than maybe I should be using it harder. I mean, honestly, maybe that's something I need to consider. But I didn't really have that issue.
Yeah, like compared to Samsung devices that I've used in the past, like usually my experience is exactly like yours, Michael, and I think that's why I gushed a little bit more than usual on my feelings about the performance, because I really was impressed by what Samsung has done with this one, and I guess we can have different experiences with performance, using it different ways, and different units even can have slightly different results from what I've noticed in previous reviews. But overall, whenever I play with this device, I look at it like, wow, this actually is a lot more responsive than I was kind of expecting. Because I was in your camp where, like, okay, yeah, it's got a Snapdragon 805, that's great, but with TouchWiz on there, it's probably going to be miserable. And I came away actually more impressed than I thought I was going to be.
It sounds like we had. I understand that. I think we may have come into it with either opposite expectations, or I'm doing the exact opposite of you, which is thinking ahead, and actually maybe being a little premature, thinking ahead to the After the Buzz segment in 3 months, when almost invariably, like I say, every Samsung device has been like I've gushed during the initial review period, and then I've had to sort of backtrack a little bit.
And we should all be. I think we should all be doing that as journalists. We should all be like going back to it a couple months later after it's been used, because it's really hard to gauge performance when you first get something out of the box. I'm sorry. You can do all the benchmarks you want to do, but I kind of feel like a smartphone or a computer technology. It's like cars. Car is perfect once you take it off the lot, like brand new. But over time, that's when you really start to see its value. So.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right. PSA.
Only you could reflash your car when it started slowing down.
I know, right?
I want to make the point that I'm using the Note 4 to run the podcast. So every time, I think both of you guys know this, I run most of my part of Pocketnow off a MacBook Air, and so I can't run anything else while I'm doing the podcast. So I always have a smartphone companion on the show, and the Note 4's multi-window and S Pen are helping me out a lot.
Killing it.
It's really sweet. So let's talk about the S Pen.
Wait, you guys, hold on. Somebody from My Vegas app just tweeted me, I think.
Are you serious?
Oh, this is big time.
I don't know. Eric said, I'm watching Pocketnow Live, and I heard you're using the My Vegas app. Have you linked it to Facebook? Of course I have. Sorry,
What are you, crazy? Of course I have. What am I, some kind of rube?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Shout out to My Vegas app. I don't use it, but that's cool. Thanks for watching.
Future sponsor.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So the S Pen, talking about things that not a lot of people use. I feel like most people buy the Note 3. Yeah, you buy the Note 3. Come on. You pull the S Pen out of it after the unboxing. You're like, oh, yeah, I guess that's cool. And you doodle like one half-ass drawing. You put it back in. You forget about it forever. I feel like that's what the story is that I hear in the comments most often. That's the story I hear from most people. But I adore the S Pen. And when I have a phone that doesn't have it, I miss it a lot. And Flo, I loved your drawing. Thank you for your yam and banana.
So actually, I just want a quick side note, which is also just showing you guys how I like kind of look at these smartphones when I review them. I spent one night so I've been practicing a lot of doodling and lettering just as part of my craft group. Yeah, I have a craft group.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't, really?
So I tried lettering and doodling inside my little like books that I have for doing that with the right kind of paper and pens. And then I tried to do it on the S Pen, and this fourth generation S Pen was way easier for doodling that way than all of the previous generations. So I mean, it's still like a little slippery, you know, as
it is.
Which
it's
is
still
what you
like
get.
writing on glass with rubber. Yeah,
exactly. But you get that little tactile feedback from the end of the tip, which is like, it's really good for, you know, when I'm just trying to kind of practice.
Is the alignment good?
There was a really, really clean segue to Brad with a question on that, but I'm going to throw it right out the window because you said tactile feedback, and I say if you're using the S Pen without the haptics, you're doing it wrong. That is the coolest thing ever.
But this also goes in and out.
If you turn what?
This also goes in and out, like it's
but yes, it does. But no, with the haptics though, you can hover the S Pen over certain elements on the screen, and yes, it'll pop up. The software will pop up.
The spindle.
Like it buzzes your hand like you're actually like rolling over some texture on the display, and it's so cool. But anyway, Brad, your wife had a totally different take on the S Pen's effectiveness. You had the fanciest header image of us all, by the way, and darn you for having someone with calligraphy in your life who did such a nice job. That was awesome.
I know, right? Like, I could not...
you could not take advantage of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, well, this is perfect. So,
my girlfriend was looking at my... I'm sorry. My girlfriend was looking at my header image right before I hit publish, and she's like, oh, that's a nice fall picture of your thing. I'm like, thanks. It's not as good as Brad's, but thanks.
Oh, that is lovely.
Yeah. I didn't get as much of a response as we did on our iPhone review, where it had like the dog in the background and like the measuring, like the like where it shows the wall, where you have the
the wall
like when you're
with the height marks, like
you're in the robbing a convenience store.
Apparently, I can't describe what it is, but like, you know, when you're a kid and you go on the wall and your parents like mark your height.
Yeah.
So, like, we got so much positive review on that, so I did this picture. I'm thinking, this is going to have a lot of positive review too. Like crickets, like nothing. I'm like, okay.
I really like it.
Brad, did your wife do that?
Yeah, she did it. So, and all of the...
You want to join my crafting group?
she might be persuaded.
But she was frustrated with it, right? Because she's a calligrapher, and you gave it to her to see if these 2,000 levels of pressure sensitivity were worth something.
Right. So, I mean, granted, she's not like professional calligrapher by any means. I don't know if there's such a thing. I guess
capital C calligrapher.
No, there's got to be like some people making some solid money with calligraphy out there somewhere. So we really need to capitalize on that trend somehow.
Definitely.
But she has been working pretty heavily on calligraphy. She's been taking lessons and getting the feel over it. So, like, when you see the picture and you see like all of the calligraphy, like the piece of paper underneath the phone, it has all this calligraphy on there. Like, that's her just practicing.
Oh, it's really damn good to me.
Yeah. So she took onto it really fast, and she does a very, very good job with it. And so I thought, well, okay, they got this calligraphy pen. I'm going to put it in her hands because she knows what she's talking about with this stuff, and if this is at all a similar experience. That's something that Samsung likes to bring up all the time. It's like, oh yeah, artists love the Note because, you know, they can just take this and it's the same experience. No, it's not. Like, it's a better experience on this than anything else. Like, you try using any other stylus on any other phone, like Passive Styli, for example, is just
it's like drawing with a crayon.
Oh god, it's miserable. Yeah, no.
So this is a respectable manifestation of an actual pen, but it's still not quite anywhere as close as we would like it to be. So when my wife used it, she did a bit of doodling and practicing the same kinds of things that she would normally do, let's say, like she did on that piece of paper underneath the phone. Well, when she started playing around with it, she's like, no, this is not anywhere close to what an actual calligrapher would use, because and I'm probably going to botch this explanation. She does a much better job of it than I do. But like when you're doing different brush strokes, you're applying different kinds of pressure, it does different things. Well, the S Pen on the Note 4 does it completely the opposite. So like she's doing something that like she's trying to get a certain result that she would normally get on pen and paper. It's doing a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So.
No,
yeah,
and I think
it's hard to explain, but it's like different directions and different types of pressure will do different things, and she's not getting the same results on the Note, so that's pretty frustrating for her.
And this is the danger when you like consider the S Pen an artistic implement. And I don't mean from a consumer perspective, but you know, I think a lot of people see that S Pen and they're like, oh, cool, well then I can use all of these features that Samsung is sort of aggressively pushing for, like shopping lists and writing down phone numbers and things like that. But really, to me, those are the least enjoyable aspects of using the S Pen. Like the ones that are easiest to demo to people are the least enjoyable ones to use because they don't work terribly well and it's not very comfortable. What I love using the S Pen for is as this kind of mouse idea, like the mouse to the desktop thing. It's like hovering over the bottom of a page to scroll with it and holding the button down and dragging over text to highlight it and then copy that stuff, and just using it so that my hand doesn't have to be right up against the screen. It's actually a little more comfortable. Like these really benign and sort of lame sounding advantages are actually the ones that are much more compelling to me, and when I give up the thing, I really, you know, I miss it. I miss the S Pen when I give up a Note. It's weird.
With the touchscreens we've been used to, it's hard to separate position from event input. And it's always been something they've struggled with. This finally gives us an easy way to just point to things without directly interacting with them. Yeah. It sounds great, and I wish we saw it on more phones.
I actually use a stylus at night. You know, you're like in bed, like on your tablet or whatever, just kind of perusing the last day's Twitter feed, and I just like do it with the tablet, or excuse me, with the stylus. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
I will say,
it's just something about it.
You know where I miss it the most is on the Lumia 1020. When I take like a beautiful picture and I take it into one of the editing apps and I really want to kind of mark it up in a and not having a stylus is like brutal for that. And I've said out loud before, like this really improbable sentence, like, man, I wish this was a Note right now. It's like no one ever said that.
But you know what? That's why paper and pen still exist, because you can never truly replicate it in the digital world that we are in now.
Yeah, I find the resolution of every paper and pen I've used really, I mean, it's not Retina quality, so why bother?
This brings me back to something I wanted to mention a minute ago. We're trying to compare the Note 4's stylus to calligraphy, to actual, you know, real world pen and pencil art. How does it compare though to other high-end tablets out there, like the professional Wacom ones? That's what I'm curious to see. I don't know that I've seen a comparison. Someone like a designer who uses one of these things on a daily basis, do you get the same level of control with the really expensive standalone ones as you do from the Note 4 screen?
And that would make a great story.
If we had Adam Lane on the show, he could tell us. Because he uses a lot of the Windows tablets and incorporate the Wacom stuff, as I recall.
My boyfriend uses his first generation Surface and Surface Pro, and as those of you who don't know, my boyfriend is a huge Microsoft lover, so just FYI.
And awesome to talk to over German beer, by the way.
He's a great person. He is working on this game that he had funded through Kickstarter called Temporis. Google it. Sorry. But he does all of his designing on it for his characters. Like, he will just sit in bed and just design it on the Surface, and he loves it so much. Like, he just goes crazy over the stylus and the freaking tablet. I don't know. I'm like...
Yeah, it's weird because it's like this thing that's, you think of a stylus and you think like, okay, archaic Palm Trio from, 2007, and no.
That was a great device.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
R.I.P. Palm. Poor little app. What are we missing? We started to talk about the camera before, and now we're going to talk about it for real now. You guys, I don't know how you are with low light stuff. We sort of talked about this a little bit at the top with the selfie stuff, but the optical image stabilization combined with whatever they're doing on the software side has made this camera the best one I've used on a Samsung phone. And oh my God, I'm surprised, right? Because I usually this is usually not where Samsung decides to excel. Their viewfinders are usually pretty intuitive. Their daylight shots are usually super saturated, so they're pretty, but their low light is like crap. And this camera is actually quite good in a lot of different shooting conditions.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. I've just been used to Samsung devices completely sucking it up on light performance that, when I started playing around with it, I looked at it, I'm like, that should not be happening. What's going on here? Like all of a sudden I could actually see things, and it just blew my mind. So yes, I do believe that Samsung, which is already pretty darn good at daylight performance, in my opinion, like the Galaxy S4, the Galaxy S5, were definitely above average. One of my favorites to use, especially if I know I'm going into the mountains and doing something near pretty scenery. Like I'm going to take that phone with me. So that wasn't as much of a surprise to me. But what surprised me is that the pictures are a lot sharper.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when you zoom in really closely, this isn't just a matter of it's higher resolution. So obviously, it's just I think the optical image stabilization and the ISO cell really made a huge difference this time around, where I just didn't see as much of that on the GS5 or any.
There was a lot of bleeding in the GS5. It was like the picture was really nice from far away, but then when you would zoom in, it would just like the colors looked like they bled. Like they were bleeding together, like you poured water over it or whatever.
Yeah. I know about the megapixels. Do we know how the physical sensor size compares to the GS5?
One of us wrote about it. Brad quoted this in his review, I think. While you look that up, I will say it's actually a little bit easier to use as well. My first impression of the viewfinder was pretty annoyed because Samsung has been sort of revising its viewfinder experience. Initially last year, by the way, comparing the Note 3 and the Note 4 side by side is one of the most hilarious things because the software in the 3. Even though it's 4.4.2 and it's only from a year ago, it looks so archaic.
Yeah.
But the Note 3 viewfinder was actually a little bit easier to use at first because it had these big old cards that you could swipe through with a thumb and they told you what they did. Whereas now, we have this wall of toggles that Samsung introduced on the S5. But thankfully, you can drag them off. You can make your own little shortcut ribbon or whatever, but you don't have to dive into it as often, and that's one of the benefits to this viewfinder. The camera's smart enough to actually adapt to whatever situation you're in and do a better job. But it's not my favorite viewfinder still, and my principal interface complaint is the lack of a hardware camera button. So now everyone in the comments feel free to yell at me that you can use the volume rocker. No, it's not the same thing. And
but what about voice capture, Michael?
Never used a hardware camera. Cheese. Yes.
By the way, this is something I didn't put in my review, but when we did our lab tests with the two cameras, the Note 3 versus the Note 4, the Note 4 with the flash on, the shutter speed, what is even the shutter speed? It's just as it's calibrating the flash to take the photo, it still is like a 3 to 5 second delay.
Oh, really?
Super annoying, because when you're taking photos at a bar and people are like moving and drunk and stuff.
I know.
Okay. Seriously, no, I'm serious.
No, it is true. No,
it was really frustrating, and I was like, okay, like it's like
the worst, especially if you're trying to get like a shot that's like not a cameo. What am I thinking of? An impromptu shot. What if you
candid?
A candid photograph.
Candid camera.
Like you try and capture this candid photo in low light, and oh yeah, I forgot that I took a selfie pano. Thanks for stopping the frame there, Jules. And you hit the button, and everyone is like blinded for 2 seconds by this pre-fire flash, and then the real flash hits them, and everybody just looks hellish. That panoramic selfie is a really cool idea, but I think it makes you look like a crazy monster. Did you guys have any success with those outside of yours, Flo?
I don't think I look like a monster. I think I
look good in yours, but don't get it too close to your face. Let me warn you. I would much prefer using the rear camera selfie mode, which, do you guys remember what phone we first saw those on?
No.
Please tell us, Michael.
Like
you know the answer.
It's the same,
I do remember this answer. I'm going to take the camera feed off me because I can't stand looking at me taking selfies while I'm talking. This is like pointedly stuck in my mind. Because Anton and I were covering MWC 2013, and we got into a fight, like not a fist fight, but like a loud argument about whether to shoot this video on the trade floor. Because I wanted to shoot it, Tony didn't. It was the Nokia like 110 or 130 or something. This like super low end device.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. It was a dumb phone, and like
Sorry,
it was a feature phone. Yeah, you turn it around, and like you held it up until it saw your face, and when it saw your face, it would just start beeping at you like it's a target acquisition thing, like Top Gun. And then when you got a solid tone from your Sidewinder missile, it would hit you with a selfie shot. And this was on a dumb phone.
It would have a little red laser dot hitting your. Your forehead. That's always a little unnerving.
You guys know my Fujifilm Instax it comes with a selfie mirror that you attach onto the front of the lens.
So considerate.
Instant photos, like perfectly of yourself.
God, holy crap! You just reminded me. Remember when dumb phones used to have the little tiny mirror next to the lens?
Yes, because the Samsung and LG both had little mirrors on the other side.
Yeah. It was like one of those things you stick on mirrors you put on a truck mirror, like for wide angle. What were you saying, Steven?
Point-and-shoot cameras, at least a few, had little LCDs on the front, so you could just hold them out and do selfies.
I think Canon had one of those.
Back when you had clamshell phones with full-color outside LCDs, you could do that too. You could use that for the viewfinder, which is nice. We're going to talk in the news section in a bit about the Oppo N3. You can turn the whole camera around. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about this whole megapixel war on the front-facing camera here. It seems like we're done with the megapixel war on the back, so why don't we just focus on the front, right? So I think this is kind of interesting because, and the reason why I bring this up is because when I started playing with the whole rear selfie thing on the Note 4, you've got 16 megapixel shots. That's awesome until you start zooming in on your face and you keep zooming in, like, oh, I can see my pores, and why? You right? So, maybe that's just me getting kind of.
No, it's not just you.
This is like the thought of every actor when HDTV first premiered. It's, oh my god.
Yes, exactly. Oh yeah. Like, man, I really need to like put some makeup on or something.
I'll just stand.
Let me know if you do.
This absurd play where you've thrown on this this massively powerful front-facing camera, but then what you have to do as a manufacturer then is be like, oh wow, people really look ugly when you shoot them that close. So we're going to put this digital makeup option on so that you can ruin
Have you guys actually used those makeup apps? Because I have one on the Note 4 right now. It's ridiculous. Like, it puts on like eyelashes on you and eyeliner.
Downloading
and,
now.
Actually, Sony does a lot of that. Flo, have you used any of the Xperia, the Z line, the modern ones?
No, but not like this. Not like this.
No, but Sony does a lot of that stuff. You can put like dinosaurs on your face and like
game changer.
It's called YouCam Makeup. It's in the Google Play Store. It's
YouCam Makeup.
Is it you, the letter U?
No, just like you. Like,
okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Not me.
And I mean, you guys keep talking, and then I'll show you what happens.
Us can make up.
Okay, great.
You can has makeup.
Yeah, we can all make up. It's kind of it's like as well named an app as Sleep as Android, the most confusing app name in history. So anyway, while Flo's looking that up, and we've kind of covered the camera, I want to get to some Q&A questions here. But lastly, we have to talk about this. We have to maybe touch on this Gapgate nonsense, which is total crap. But also, we should, yeah. But also, we should talk about how this thing feels compared to other notes. And I was about to put some words in y'all's mouth, but then I realized you've already put the words out there into the world, and I think we all agree this is the best note that we've ever felt. But
all the feels.
Oh boy, snap that thing in half.
Yeah, Flo, do you happen to have like one of those testing robot butts around that we can bend this with? Yeah, no.
No.
And do you have jean pockets that are large enough to...
I don't have jean pockets anymore because I'm a woman. They don't give us pockets. They're like, pockets?
Did they take pockets off? I remember when they did that like 10 years ago. They took pockets off of jeans, and I was very confused by the whole thing.
Not jeggings, like full on makes no pockets?
Breaking, men confused. Why are there not pockets?
Yeah.
Well, then that makes your whole website irrelevant because you're Pocketnow. Like, so you're going to change your name to. Like,
you've got to fight for this, Michael. Before I do. What's the matter with me? Pocket then. So listen, Gapgate, somebody disagreed with me. Flo, you think this is something to talk about? You think this is something worthwhile to mention to people, that there's a sub-micron
gap? Think those are people just looking to pick stuff, and if your hair is getting caught in your phone, then that sounds like a personal problem, and you should see a doctor about that, because...
My only concern about it, Brad, what do you think? And then I'll weigh in.
Okay, so I tried it on mine because you got to, right? Just kicks and giggles. Like,
you tried sliding a business card between the frames.
Yeah. Tried the business card, didn't work. I tried a really thin piece of paper, actually one of the pieces of paper that came in the box, one of their marketing materials. That sort of got in there in like one spot, and that was it.
How deep does it go? Is it just
not deep at all? Okay. Like you can easily just like tap on it, and it'll just all over.
Mountain
So
and a molehill.
now it might be a thing that happened with like Korean units very early on, because that does happen sometimes. Like different batches will come off the production lines, and they'll have different defects. I did find it weird how Samsung was trying to make it sound like this. This feature, though, like, yes, we're doing that for you. I thought that was kind of strange, but you know.
No, I thought they acknowledged that it was because of like.
We got to recall all these phones. Like, they're not going to do that. So what Flo was saying was about the hairs getting stuck. Like, honestly, I've had little hairs get stuck in those little cracks in
so many phones.
And it always happens right before I take pictures of the darn things, right?
Oh, me too.
I have.
I had to paint out a hair that got stuck in the camera lens on a camera macro shot for this review. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, so to me, it's very, very overblown. It's like people are now trying to look for some sort of scandal in every phone. So, Bengate and Gapgate. Like, so what's going to be the next gate?
Samsung all alone.
What are we going to do? There's
They're trying to pull one over on us.
Now, I will say this, though. This did result in one good result, in that I used a macro lens to kind of cover a lot more of the device than I would have, because I was interested in seeing whether this was overblown or not. And while I came to the same conclusion as you guys both, and I think most people, that this is a really overblown thing, and maybe we need better things to talk about, and the level of discourse in tech media needs to improve, that's a whole other issue. The thing that I found most fascinating is that when you get that close to a device and you look at it for that long, you can see imperfections that are just inevitable from a mass-produced product. So, I could see where the cutout for the front-facing camera lens is like not a perfect circle. Like I could see the cut lines from whatever seared that.
Or the headphone jack's not perfectly aligned with the case cutout.
Exactly right, that kind of stuff, and it's fascinating. And I don't bring it up to like crap on Samsung or any OEM. It's just it's kind of cool when you can compare the shots taken from millimeters off of a device and say, like, okay, well, this batch was slightly different. I see they tightened this up, or they couldn't, these tolerances were not very tight. So, wow, this phone from March and this phone from July, even though they're the same model number, they're actually quite different because they come from different manufacturing batches. I think it's fun. I'm just saying all this to recommend that if anyone has a macro lens that's just sitting around, like, friggin' look at your phone really closely. Also, if you have, like, maybe not enough, like, friends or something.
If you're that bored and there's nothing left on TV or Netflix.
You go to school for this stuff. Come on, like, this is.
Yeah.
This is engineering, man.
I know.
So kudos for going the extra yard there. Like,
thanks, brother.
Actually inspecting. That's awesome.
Thank you. It's just a fun lens to use, especially on a device like this. And I'm motivated to learn more about this thing because it is, aside from the Galaxy Alpha, one of the only Samsung devices I've ever actually been impressed with in terms of the build quality.
Now, do you think this has set a road that Samsung's going to be following for future devices? Would you be similarly impressed with the Galaxy S6?
Yes.
I 100% believe that the Galaxy S6 will have the same kind of look and feel to it. And I mean, you take a look at all the feedback that Samsung has been getting on this. Like, before it was, cheap plastic crap, blah 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 blah, and there's certainly a lot to be said about that. But just adding this extra bit of aluminum on the sides just really adds to the whole look and feel. Like, it does feel a lot more premium than any other Samsung phone that came before. So I am quite impressed with what they've been able to do. I think it's a good combination of polycarbonate and metal. Like, I don't think you need to have all metal phones, right? Like, that's never been my argument. And you take a look at the 6 Plus or the HTC One M8, where those are both all completely metal, and they're also incredibly slippery, and they're easy to drop out of your hands, at least they are to me. Whereas the Note 4 still feels great. It's a robust build, in my opinion, and I also don't feel like it's going to slip out of my hand. It's a solid one-handed experience compared to many of these other large-screen phones where it simply is not.
Does anybody else here watch Metalocalypse, where they have the death phone?
I did.
With, like, the knives sticking out of it? That's a real metal phone. We don't want Samsung to go that far.
You can kill somebody with it.
Brad, you made a good point there. I think that the compromise there's something to be said for the compromise on this thing, and I also like that you called out in the review how you were fooled by the curved bottom plate on this thing, which made you think that the entire back surface of the phone was curved for a second.
Briefly, but then I figured it out, and that was good.
But it looks really, it looks quite good. It feels quite good. I will say that it's still just as easy to drop, at least if you're me. I managed to drop the thing on the floor twice. I now have very fine scratches on the chamfer, which of course we know it's aluminum and magnesium. It is soft enough that you're going to get scratches no matter what. And also, I did manage to get a little pit in the screen from something that was on the floor. So this glass, while more robust than Gorilla Glass 3, is still not immune to drops from waist height. So I found that to be a little disappointing. But the Note 3, as some of you longtime listeners may remember, I have a lot of experience dropping the Note 3. I have dropped it twice really hard, and I shattered the screen on one, and on both units that I had, I actually roughed up the bezel too, which on the Note 3 is just plastic. It's metal plated, chrome plated plastic. And when you drop that thing, the Note 3 just wants to show you its ugly gray plastic interior. That stuff flakes off on the outside, and you just got this divot in it that looks like hell. Even at its worst, I think this aluminum will look better after 2 years than any of that plastic does on any of the previous Notes. So.
Do you guys wish it was a different metal, maybe steel or something, that'd be a little more resistant to scratches at maybe the risk of being a tad heavier?
I wouldn't mind heavier. I think heavier would serve this design better because it feels really heavy to me, and I like it. It feels, even though it's only a couple grams more massive, it feels less chintzy. What do you guys think? Flo?
Do you? Anyone? They're all busy sending selfies to Jules.
Oh, that's what's going on.
No, I think that as I put in my review, I think that this is just the new design of the Note 4 is just Samsung sort of listening to what the crowd wants and seeing where the industry is going. I mean, I really hope it sticks to this.
Me too.
I really do.
Would you prefer a more robust metal on there?
No, I don't care.
I wouldn't mind it.
I think the worst.
I think it would be cool to see a steel phone.
The worst that I ever used was the Sony Xperia Z1S. Wait, no, the Z Ultra. The Z Ultra.
That massive. I wish Taylor was on the air because he bought one.
So I dropped that at the BART station, which is our transit here in the Bay Area, and the thing just scratched up so easily because I dropped it on concrete, and I think that is not a good idea.
That is a badass selfie. By the way, good job on your
Z Ultra selfie. Brings up an interesting question I was wondering about, because we're talking about design and Samsung making changes with this model. What it might do going forward? Does the Note need to start growing to stay competitive as a phablet? Because it seems like everyone else is moving much closer to 6 inches now. The Note's comfortable around this 5.7 space. Would you appreciate a slightly larger Note, or is it fine the way it is?
No. That's what I said in my review. I think that it's honestly it's about being smarter, using the existing screen space in a smarter way, not going still bigger for no discernible reason. I think there's plenty of room on the Note as it is at 5.7, which is why they kept it the same.
If you need extra screen space, what you can do is you can go with a Galaxy Mega or whatever, right? There are other options.
Not quite the same, but yeah.
I know it's not quite the same. You don't have the stylus experience and all that.
Tablets, the 8 or whatever.
I really do think that this is a good balance between large and small. So a lot of people who normally wouldn't go with a large device, they're like, you know what, this should be fine, right? And one of the reasons for that, I was going to make this point a little bit earlier, and then we moved off topic, but was that the S Pen, when you have it in your hand and you're holding the Note with your other hand, it actually feels like a much more natural experience to me. It just kind of feels like a perfect extension. I don't know. It's hard for me to describe, but it does feel a lot more natural than just simply holding a large phone with one hand and trying to do things with it. So, We cannot do that.
I'm sorry. I'm really distracting. I'm sorry.
No worries. It is fine. I was just telling Jules to get the review roll back up. So I want to tell everyone there was a comment. We're going to get to the Q&As here in a second. I want to talk about battery life. There was a comment on one of my shots that said, like you take awful selfies, and I was like, you're right, because I can't hide the stitching of this awful panoramic selfie mode. But then I realized when I saw all of y'all's selfies that is not true. I'm just terrible.
I've been taking selfies since like 1999, dude. Like,
wow.
I'm just.
Apparently, I need to take a class in this. I'm going to go to my local
camera.
shop.
I was like, look at my new Roxy Quicksilver shirt.
Let's talk before we get to the Q&A, guys. Battery life. I think this is another area where we diverged a little bit because I have. Maybe it's because of the expectations question we talked about before, Brad, but I came into the note, as I come into most notes, saying, wow, this is the phone I used to carry at trade shows specifically because it lasted so long, and I don't find that with this. I mean, I've been able to...
Huawei envy.
What's that?
You got that Huawei envy.
Yeah, well, it's true. I got used to the Ascend 2 4G LTE. But this thing doesn't last as long as I want it to. I've been able to get up to 5 hours of screen on time, maybe. On each charge. I mean,
so what are you expecting in terms of screen on screen time?
In terms of screen on time, to really impress me, I think 6 hours is what you need to do.
How high are you putting up the brightness, though? That's obviously a factor with this friggin' big-ass display.
The display is the #1 culprit. This is actually where I'm going with this. Yeah. I don't like ramp up the brightness. As a matter of fact, just today was the first time on automatic mode in 8 days I ever saw it detect the sunlight and go to max 750 nit or whatever. It's very conservative with that, and I'm not a jerk about it either. I kind of let it stay low if I can still read it. So I'm not really blowing it up, and I'm not, firing up Asphalt 8 every 2 minutes. I'm just using it the way I normally use a phone, and it's. I really think that the inclusion of this display, while unavoidable, is kind of a shame, because with a 1080p display, I bet this thing could hit 7, maybe 8 hours of screen on time easy. What do you guys think? Am I totally crazy?
I haven't had, admission here, today I'm actually doing the official battery test for this because I just didn't have time with
I understand.
everything that happened this week.
Yeah.
But anecdotally, I did keep it on for 2.5 days on standby, not just standby, but just like randomly using it from Saturday through Monday afternoon. And Monday afternoon is when it finally hit 14%, and it was like, it's time for you to charge me. So I was pretty good with it, but I also wasn't using it to do work. I was using it to play slot machine games and Facebook and take photos. Seriously, that's all I was, doing with it. So,
sorry.
No, go ahead, Brad.
So in my experience, when I used it for heavy duty work stuff, I had the screen on all the time. I was doing all sorts of pictures, videos, emails, the whole 9 yards. When you're doing reviews, there's a lot of stuff that gets involved, and I try pretty much everything. So I would do these activities, and by the end of the day, when it's time to go to bed, I still had about 20% left. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. Now, granted, the screen on time might be a little different story. I usually was able to get it somewhere between 5 and 5.5 hours, and for me, that's actually pretty good. And the way I look at this here is I do love battery life, and I think they need to just go above and beyond for it. I'm kind of sad that they weren't able to add in any extra battery, 20 milliamp hours is not enough of a difference to matter.
Right.
But the surprising thing to me is the fact that the Note 3 and the Note 4 really aren't all that different in terms of battery. So they were able to keep the battery size about the same and still bump up to a higher display resolution and not have it negatively affect the battery life.
No, it is impressive.
Because Michael was complaining earlier about his worries about resolution impacting the battery life. Do we know that this is a major factor? It doesn't seem like we've had a good comparison. When we had the Galaxy S5 and that South Korean, the LTE edition that had the Quad HD display, but it also, I believe, changed the SoC. Have we had a phone where it's the same exact model except for a resolution change, where we can actually evaluate this and see how much of an impact does this make?
LG's got one with the G3. I believe it's the same everything except for the display resolution, right? One of those G3 variants. That's a good question, Steve. We should actually look into that because you're right. When the SoC changes, everything changes, and of course, you get radio band support. That changes too, and that affects endurance as well. So it's like it would be nice to run this test in locked in lab conditions.
My best is that it's less of an impact.
TouchWiz is what it is.
Any display expert, and they're going to say that like as long as the pixels go up and the resolution goes up, you're going to have a bigger battery to accommodate that. There's no way that you can keep it the way it is now.
Yeah.
By the way, for me, the biggest battery sucker is streaming radio.
Really? See, I can't determine my biggest battery sucker because the only results I get in the battery area of the settings menu is Android system and Android OS. And it doesn't get more specific than that. Like, those are my big draws next to the screen, but sometimes they exceed the screen. And even cell standby is like at 11%. Every bit of consumption on my device is higher than I'm used to seeing it, and that's what's strange to me. I can't remember ever having a defective review device in my life, but I don't think this one is. No, really. I mean, Stephen, let's be clear.
I know we've gotten some. I don't know if it's you, but
yeah, no, I've been asked by many manufacturers if they sent me a bad review device, and I'm like, well, send another, and then it never is. It's just bad. But I had one question to go here, and I forgot what it was. While we're talking about charging, I know I got to get you out of here, Brad, but it's really awesome that you can charge this thing up to 50% in a half an hour, and that is totally accurate. I love how quickly this thing charges. Isn't that?
It was. Let's see here. Where's my notes?
I got up to 47% in 30 minutes. That was where I was at.
Yeah, I got 60% in 45 minutes.
God, oh, it's amazing. In an hour and 25 minutes or something, I was at a full charge from absolute zero, which is so cool. Brad, I want to give you an escape hatch just in case you really need to get out of here. But do you want to stick around for a couple Q&As, or do you have to go do real work?
I can stick around. I can stick around for a little bit. Yeah. Can we talk about one other thing? I don't think we really talked too much about the display itself, like the resolution. We talked about the effect it has on battery life, of course, but I want to get your guys' opinion on this because to me, the Quad HD resolution, when you compare it with the Note 3 and its 1080p resolution, is not a huge difference. Like, it's not mind-blowing. I can easily go back to 1080p and not bat an eye. Like, I can't be like... It's weird because when we made the jump to 1080p and we started getting used to those screens, I would go back to a 720p and look at it and be like, it's just not very good. But I don't feel the same way going from Quad HD back down to 1080p, and I wanted to see if you guys felt the same way.
I feel so much the same way that I pointedly avoided talking about it on the show because I think every week I say something very similar. Yeah, Brad, absolutely. I'm in the same boat as you. When I was comparing these side by side, it's nice. I'm not complaining. Like, when I get that macro lens out, you can really see it. It looks like a great carpet of pixels, but I don't care in day-to-day use. That's why I wouldn't have minded if they had stayed with 1080p and reaped the benefits of doing that. And frankly, I don't think most people would have minded, but the loud people who do nothing but stare at spec sheets would have shouted them down so hard that they had to go to
Now, Brad, when you look at like a Quad HD tablet and then moving to a 1080p, do you see more of a generational leap with the higher res when we're looking at a larger physical size, like a 7-inch or maybe even larger?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, when you're looking at larger displays, I think that resolution difference does make a much larger difference than it does on a smaller screen. Like,
but down below 6, there's only so far you can push things before our eyes just can't appreciate.
I mean, take a look at the argument, like with the Z3 Compact, for example, where it's I believe it's a 720p screen, and the spec nerds and all of us think, well, man, why did they just go with the 1080p and keep it equal with the Z3? But you don't need that in a 4.6-inch screen, right? Like, it all just comes down to what size the screen is and if that makes sense. So, like, while it's nice that Samsung went with a Quad HD, it goes back to our discussion on battery life, is you find yourself having to make these choices. Like, if only it had 1080p, would that in turn give it a better battery life? Or is this just, would it be the same either way? Like, you start having to make these decisions. Okay, well, if I want the Quad HD resolution, then the trade-off is, in theory, battery life.
I want WVGA and 4,000 milliamp battery. That's the way to go.
Oh.
You heard it here.
You know what? This whole like quad HD 1080p thing. Okay, when you look at the Galaxy Alpha, it's 720p. Looks fantastic.
Absolutely.
It's so great. I don't even care.
Yeah.
And ever since, I mean, fine, I get 1080p, you want to have that number in there. Fine, it sounds great. It's great for marketing. It's great for people who love technology but don't necessarily really know what that means. Like, my mom and dad are going to be like, ooh, this is a high-res phone, and, you know, that's all they're going to be able to say about it. But you know what? Whether you watch Transformers on a big screen TV or, like, a small 720p phone, it's still a shitty movie. I think I just feel like it's, as a consumer, it's really frustrating to see like, oh my God, we're fighting for specs. It has all these amazing specs. You know what? I really don't care. I don't know. I think the experience is really what matters. And if it's going to hurt battery life, if it's going to make the phone cost an exorbitant amount, then I don't think it's worth it.
And it's one thing to do specs because you can do specs, and I get that. And it's another thing to bring them when they bring concrete features, and you know, we can sort of go back and forth on this, and it also depends on how often you spend with your phone, like 2 inches from your eyeballs. And if that's the case, you know, that there are certain edge cases for this. I think a lot of it is not terribly valid.
A lot of teenagers, like, their phone is the only thing that they're allowed to have in their life that's super high tech. So, you know, they're doing their homework. They want to. They don't care, like, if it's 1080p because they're still going to hide Netflix from mom and dad.
Ooh, and when a phone out there, like, forgive me for going back to it, but when a phone out there like the Huawei Ascend Mate 2 4G LTE exists, that you can buy for like $300 unlocked, and it gives you literally 10 hours of screen on time. So if you forget to charge it for a half a week, you're fine. When something like that exists, I think you have to kind of take a step back and be like, wow, yeah, it has a 720p screen at 6 inches. Does that look like total garbage?
All this talk about looking at the phone close up has got me thinking maybe we shouldn't be evaluating the Note 4 in a vacuum like this, because what about the big tie-in accessory, the Gear VR, where you do have the phone right in front of your eyeballs? Would the super high-res display versus 1080p actually make a difference there?
And that's such a niche, though. And that's such a niche right now. Not, you know, it's the average consumer. The people are going to be doling out money for this.
Yeah, but think about Samsung's like strategery there, right? I mean,
yeah, they want to be like, look at us. We can be like, we're going to be a part of this gaming revolution, and we've got this partnership with Oculus, and it's exactly why Google just, you know, released the Nexus 6 with the Quad HD, because that's just kind of the way that things are going. They want to show how much power they could put to these little things. That's great, but I know.
But it does, like, you know, valid or not, in a practical way, for the marketing message, like you were saying before, Flo, it's gold. It's like, you can strap this to your face, and also when you strap it to your face, it's freaking 2K.
I'm strapping it to my face. It's so like, slap it to a Slim Jim, you know.
Oh yeah. What's in the Q&A here? Do you think the Nexus 6 would rival the Note 4 if it brings phablet features? Asks Zoa Jared.
No.
What define phablet features?
It's already
define a phablet, because that's the number one thing. Is some people say a phablet is 5 inches, which is complete crap. And some people say it's 5.5. Like, you know, nobody has actually defined this freaking magical phablet category, even though everybody uses it. It's this ubiquitous word now that just.
I think everybody. It's like a choose your own adventure thing. You can make your own definition. For me, it's feature based. It's not a size threshold or anything like that, because, you know, I don't consider the LG G3 a phablet.
No, it's not.
No. I mean, when you have I think the Galaxy Note is the quintessential phablet, because it not only has a larger screen but brings features, whether you use them or not, it brings features that uses that screen to the max, and that's what a phablet is to me. What do you think, Flo? You agree?
I don't think that, I mean, back to like marketing here, I don't think that the Nexus 6 is going to outperform the Note 4. Samsung has way more like marketing prowess than Google does for its devices. Google is more focused on its services, and this is clearly, I actually have an article going on.
But with all the carriers involved now, it might be different this time.
With all the what?
Well, the carriers involved with the Nexus 6.
Yeah.
Now they finally have an interest in pushing this thing.
You know, I think time will have to tell for that. I think it's very hard for me personally to wax poetic on this right now because this is a totally new move for Google, and Mr. Pichai, who I have tons of respect for ever since I met him that one night.
It was magical.
It was super magical. Oh my god! I can't stop talking about it. He has a very clear vision for how he wants to, move Android forward, and I feel like maybe we shouldn't comment on it just yet. Maybe we should do like a before the new year, like this is where we think it's going, because I think we need to wait a little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Let's just wait just a little bit.
All right, that sounds reasonable. Let's move on.
Because I could talk about it for 3 hours. That's why, and I don't want to veer off course here with.
No problem.
Well, then Ruben.
She just wants to talk about.
We're already talking about. Yeah, I was just going to say you just want to brag.
He's so nice, by the way. Features. FYI. Sorry.
When are too many features just too many? How many do you use after the review period? Asks
8 of them.
What did you say? None of them, Brad?
8.
8.
Sometimes 8.5.
It's
just crazy.
Which one?
I use every single toggle in that notification shade twice daily just to say that I can. I think Brad actually spoke to this directly in his review, where he said that some of the features that we've kind of slammed Samsung for in the past have disappeared, and rightly so, because they were half-baked, and it was time to either finish them or get them the hell out of there. So Finish him. Get over here. So those, thanks for that, everybody. So those crappy, like, move your head to scroll the page things are gone. The what else did they take out? They took out, yeah, exactly. They took out a bunch of, like, the dance move stuff. I don't think you can use these if you have a bunch of people at your party who has Note 4s. I don't think you can use them as speakers if you're on the same Wi-Fi Direct network.
That sounds so cool, though.
Yeah, it looks cool when you have all data, like, set up and shoot your commercial for it, but no one
for a launch event.
Or you could turn on your Connect and just be like, let's dance.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is a shame because, what else are you going to do when you're waiting for your nails to dry and you've got wine and you're dancing around at a party?
Gamble.
At a party, it's suspiciously
You flip through a magazine
1950s.
very carefully without getting your nails.
Sorry,
This is where the VR is coming, hands-free.
Or launch event because it's just golden. Yeah.
Wait, I
don't know where to go from there.
There was crosstalk, and I didn't catch it. So I think.
Can I be honest about the whole features thing?
I wish you'd be honest.
You have to be.
Don't lie. Don't you lie on me.
With the person that I am, I recognize that people like my mom and dad will not, and I use them as my benchmark for this because my parents are techies. God bless them, and this is why their daughter is a techie because they raised me to be like that. They will not go and change stuff when they get a phone. Like, they just kind of leave it as it is, and they actually use the features, but I'm an enthusiast. I do this for a living, and I know what I want out of my phone, so the minute I'm using a phone after a review, I will just skin the hell out of it, put my icon pack on it, and just go through life. Because I just want, even on a stock Android phone, I just want the phone to look. That's why I like Android, because I can just do whatever the hell I want.
You can do whatever you want. But doesn't that make you concerned that, this is why it's important to criticize, I think, carriers and OEMs for throwing bloat on there, because on an AT&T phone, for example, after you get your first phone call on that device, you get a pop-up that's like, hey, someone called you from a number you don't have in your phone book. Do you want to use AT&T's contacts to go feature and then pay into
I think the carrier bloat is worse. Verizon, I've been a customer for a really long time. The bloat is really bad. I have never used any of those apps.
Yeah, but they all do it. Sprint has an unbelievable amount of bloat that actually slows the most phones down.
It's really frustrating.
But the benefit for that is nobody actually uses Sprint phones, so it's okay.
Ow! Burn.
And also,
this stuff, like, if there are people like you're talking about, Flo, if there's people like your parents who are like, they don't change anything. If it comes on the home screen, then I'm going to either use it or just ignore it, but it'll still be there. Like, ISIS and other kind of stuff. Some of this is maybe useful, but much of it is just rough and crappy stuff.
I think this is an
makes
example.
it a horrible experience.
So I don't use stock just because I'm on Verizon, I don't really have that ability. So here's the Note 4's notification shade. This is clogged as hell. Okay,
That's fine.
I don't like it.
Oh.
This is the HTC Sense. I love this so much better. It's so much. Turn back on.
So Flo is comparing HTC Sense and TouchWiz, and actually, I mean, your point here, Flo, is understandable. But aren't there more things in the TouchWiz shade? Aren't there more things? Not on the TouchWiz. Aren't there more things in the Sense shade? Like that looks more cluttered to me, even the first.
Because I made it that way, but because I made it that way.
Okay. All right.
For points of argument,
the other point is that this uses the double-sided one, whereas on the Note 4, when you hit the other side, the other door, it just gives you the entire thing, and that's like so busy. I don't want to do that. I just want everything like.
Yeah.
I think those kind of extra features, and
we're comparing different notification screens here. I think this is the one that we should really be comparing with the Sense one.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, look how much bigger it is. It's much more.
I love that.
Amazing that is. I don't know.
I don't like a lot of toggles myself. I thought it was cool when they threw all those toggles on the Galaxy S4, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's kind of looks complicated.
I like remote controls for my home entertainment system with like 200 buttons on it. One distinct thing for everything.
Hey, I still use 4 remotes for our TV, okay?
Yes.
Right. Will you review the Note 4 Exynos version, 805 versus 5433? Possibly. I will say that. What about you guys? You guys should answer this too, but I will say that when we did this for the S5, we reviewed the S5, then we reviewed the Active and the Sport and the phone that everyone called the S5 Prime, and it was just a mess of coverage. It took a lot of work, and everyone was so burned out on S5 stuff that no one really watched it or read it.
Yeah.
These
days, I just don't care as much about like the little tiny variances, right?
Me too.
Just make the one product and make sure it's a good user experience across the board. Because look, there's something to be said about a really good performing phone, but at this point, with what we've got, like even with Exynos versus Snapdragon 805, it really should not be enough of a difference in the overall user experience to really make that much of an effect, right? Like. Mm-hmm. Like, I should be able to pick up an Exynos Note 4 and still have a good experience. And maybe it's not going to be quite as good on the quadrant score or whatever. Like, I just do benchmarks. Don't get me started on what I'm getting myself started. I'm sorry. But, because the whole thing is, you're looking at a difference of, maybe 200, 300 a quadrant score. People don't care. People don't walk into a store and look at two different devices as like, well, which one runs higher benchmarks, right? Like, it just doesn't happen. Samsung thinks it does because they decided to cheat on all the benchmarks, but that's another story. But it really doesn't have an effect. So, to me, I don't see a need to be going into that much detail on every single tiny variant between the two. I do like the idea of comparing Exynos and Snapdragon and all that, but like to go through the extent of the entire review process all over again just because of a different chipset is not going to be enough of a difference, because the camera is still going to be the same, the stylus, the S Pen, the display, like all these other features are going to be exactly the same.
You get down to talking about regional variations in like the software. It's like, well, on this one they had golf shot in the camera, and on this one they didn't. Like, it's like, okay.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I just looked at the clock and had a horrified moment of realization.
Sorry.
That we're so far off the rail. Not off the rails, but we're just
3-hour podcast.
We're so impassioned.
We have a lot. Well, there was a lot to say. This always happens with the Note.
It's a big podcast for a big phone.
Ooh, that should have been. Damn it.
With a lot of features.
Help me write the headline for this podcast, Brad.
Nobody asked me.
I will ask you next time. I promise you. You will be part of the creative process at an earlier stage next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brad, I'm going to let you go because we're going to move on to the news. Does that sound all right to you?
Sure. Did you want to talk briefly about iPads or anything like that before I go?
No. I want to shove that.
I know how Flo feels about iPads. Like, she loves them. Like, she'll be able to talk for hours about them. So you're in good hands there.
Yeah. No. I think, I would just, with regards to Apple, I would want to talk to you mainly about the Apple Laser, but I think that can wait until we get our laser review units.
Besides,
Oh my God! Please do an animation of Brad shooting lasers out of his eyes, like the laser cat, but
That's
laser
a good
Brad.
idea. And shaving pencils, just doing that. But Brad, there's a picture of you on Twitter.com carrying a large box out of an alley.
Where?
What's
out of an alley?
What's in the box?
It does sound suspicious, but don't worry. I got that box by very legitimate means in that alley.
All right.
So
you weren't running.
There
were not law enforcement agents chasing after you, so I assume you're meant to have it.
Yes. There's no secret about it. It's actually our Retina iMac review unit.
Oh. I wish we covered computers.
Sorry.
I
just brought this entire podcast to a halt.
It's all right. It's all right. We're at a transition point, and it'll be lovely. But I want to give you the opportunity, Brad, to if you have any final thoughts on the Note 4 that you didn't get to share, please do. Otherwise we'll just stop.
Final thoughts. I would say that the Note 4 is, well, a lot of people were surprised because I actually said it was better than the 6 Plus, and as everyone knows, we are all Apple biased. So
you guys get paid by Apple, right?
Yeah, I lost out on $50 because I admitted that the Note 4 was better. But overall, the one-handed experience, there are actually features built into the Note that you don't see on any other large-screen phone. And this is a thought that's going back to that question about the Nexus 6 versus the Note 4. Both of them will have their own strengths that they'll be able to cater to. And one of the Note's strengths is just the fact that you do have that S Pen experience. If you don't care for it, you don't have to use it. It's there. It's out of the way. It's not very distracting in my opinion. But the one-handed experience is bar none the best that I've ever used on any large screen phone. So you look at 6-inch, 5.7, doesn't really matter how large. If it's over 5.5 inch, usually that one-handed experience is just horrible because you're trying to move your thumb around and just to hit the home button can be a huge issue a lot of times. So I was very impressed by that. I think Samsung it looked like they put a whole lot more care into this device than they have with any other device before. And so this is something I'm hoping to see a lot more of from Samsung going forward. So like I said, the Samsung Galaxy S6, I would really like to see them take the same kind of approach with that. They do still need some work with the fingerprint sensor and the heart rate monitor and all that stuff, but it's at least improved. It's getting a little bit better as time goes by. So anyway, Note 4 it was a fun device to review. I'm still using it as my daily driver, and I probably will for a little while. So.
Wow, that's a ringing endorsement if I ever heard one. I mean, usually when I get to the end of a review period, I want nothing more than to get back to my phones.
Well, and don't get me wrong, because I review so many phones, I'm sure I'm going to be reviewing the Nexus 6. So it's for me, I only have daily drivers for so long, and then I switch around. But that's the thing.
Too.
That's kind of our blessing and burden as phone reviewers, right? Is we enjoy a phone, and then we have to move on to the next thing. But what it comes down to is when that review period slows down and we don't have any phones to review, well, what are we going to go with? What is our daily driver? And I never saw the Note 3 as a daily driver. I had one. I used it for the reviews and things like that for a little while, and then I moved on, and I never really went back to it. At least the Note 4, I can see myself actually going back to that during the slow period and picking it up again and using it for a while. So
it's not as you can actually be. I think you phrased it a certain way. It's you can actually be proud of it to sort of plunk it down on the table. And I think Flo, you said something similar. We've gone over this specifically before, but just from its very first impression, it appears to be a device worth carrying, and it turns out that's true once you use it for a little bit. So.
And if I could use it, I would probably skin it because that's just what I do with Android. But I agree with Brad. I love the form factor. It finally made me see why big phones are the status quo now.
Yeah. It's not all about how big a screen you can have. It's what you can do with it.
Exactly.
I love that. Kind of giggling, but it's not about the size. But if you're going to have a large screen phone, do something with it. Don't just be like, oh, hey, look, you can see more of a website with it. Okay, fine, that's great. But if that means that I can't carry it with one hand, then what good is that going to do me?
Particularly if you are, I know we've been throwing a lot of shade at Apple for this in the 6 Plus. That's kind of like the defining example of what not to do with a big screen, just make it bigger. But also the 1520 from Nokia is more offensive, if you ask me, because Microsoft has a great multitasking feature in Snap, and it doesn't allow it to be used on Windows Phone, and that's just
time.
So. I've
there's
given it
really
time.
nothing you can do with a large screen on Windows Phone. Like, they have thrown in zero enhancements to the user experience.
I mean,
like,
I actually
it's even worse because
it's
you have all this open space.
In the large screen iOS, because you can put live tiles and you can like use up the at least the home screen more intelligently. But
the home screen. So if you have 5 gazillion different apps that you like to use in any given day, sure, that makes sense. But now that they have folders, does it really matter as much?
Yeah, but I don't like using if you have a big enough screen, you don't have to use folders as much on Windows Phone, because then you can use the live tiles like to their extent, and that's great. And I like that a lot. I miss Windows Phone right now. All of a sudden, it's been like weeks since I used Windows Phone. I gotta go find my Lumia after this.
If you're gonna start talking about Windows, I think I'm gonna have to switch places with my boyfriend, because he's gonna sit here and be like, "I love Windows."
We'll all nerd out. It'll be great. We'll talk about his apps.
Well, Michael, just use this little guy right here.
Oh, hey.
Brad's holding up a BlackBerry passport. And
Whoa.
suddenly things got real weird.
I am still going to review it, by the way. I've got all these other reviews I got to do first, but once I get to it, I have an interesting little twist. I think a lot of people
Hey guys, remember BlackBerry?
I know, right?
Hey, Brad, when you send that back to them, put a little Post-it note on it, and just with my address on it. That's all you got to do. So I'll
along with a little slice of cheese.
Yeah. Oh, no. All right.
For the record, I really liked the BlackBerry Z10.
No, I did not. I like the Q10. But oh God, what are we gonna? All right, next up on the Pocketnow Weekly, WebOS conversations for the next 45 minutes. We got to move on.
It's making a comeback.
There is something we could talk about.
I know there actually is news on
We
that.
should just live stream all the time and just talk about this is exactly what we do every time we get together. By the way, at the bar, we're like, let's talk about phones. And
I know.
It's like,
Boo.
we're serious about it. This is bad.
This is good. This is just like being at the bar, except we're not drinking.
There were other subjects that are not appropriate to talk about on this podcast.
That's true.
Sure, we're brought up a few times.
Cash mode.
Well, yes. Very inappropriate to talk about on this podcast.
Which smartphone is your personal Jesus?
Yes.
Silence.
I'm about to have Jules sound the news alarm, but Brad, I'm going to tell everybody at the end of the show, but tell everyone where they can find you on the internet.
I am on Twitter at PhoneWisdom, and I'm also on Google+. You just look for my name. And, I'm also on Engadget.com. I write sometimes. It happens. So I do some reviews and features and stuff. So it's a lot of fun. Come read me.
Yes, do it. I highly recommend it. Brad, thank you for your time today. I'm glad that you were able to share your Note 4 opinions with us.
So you do. You rule. And you know it.
We live in the same county, right? I think we do.
Close. I think it's like across the river.
I like that Flo is falling into the trap of thinking this is the end of the podcast, but it's not, Flo. Keep your brain turned on. We're not even halfway done, man. Welcome to the podcast.
My boss is going to start calling. Where are you?
I know. All right, Brad, thanks again, man.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was great to be on.
We'll see you next time, brother.
Okay. And
a bunch of news just broke too.
Is that right?
Oh no, what are we missing?
What's new in the news? Because we're about to talk about the news.
Oh, Google's Vice President of Engineering for Android is now the VP of Engineering for Chrome as well. And that's Eric walking behind me, by the way.
Oh, that's not. I mean, that's news, but that's not like news. Hi, Eric.
Oh.
We lost Brad. Let's pull in a new guest.
All right, I'm going to have Jules sound the news alarm so that he has a spot to do it. Jules, hit it. Thank you very much. Steven, why don't you tell us what the hell we're talking about? Because I don't think you've had a word in for about 55 minutes.
Which is a shame, because I also have a Note 4, and I had lots of opinions, too.
I'm sorry, I talk too much.
Steven is having a joke at our expense. He's actually using a Samsung flip phone from oh no, he's using a Nexus. He's using a horrible what is this? What is Samsung
Tab
Note
8.9.
10 point.
I upgraded it though to a Note 4 though. So.
With a Note 4, yes, with a Note 4 Note on it. That's very clever, Steven. Steven, tell us what the hell's been happening in the news this week, as if we don't already know.
Launches galore.
Holy crap.
Who knew?
I mean, this is nuts. I love how Google drops stuff. Like everyone else does an event, they invite people. You got to fly in. There's a big auditorium full of PowerPoints.
I miss the Google events, and I feel like this started like as an accident. Remember I don't know the name.
Hurricane.
Yeah, we were gonna get a New York launch event for the Nexus 4. Didn't happen. And now they're like, oh well, that one didn't work out like we planned, so no more launch events from now on.
Just doing news releases
Torch
via
the whole
email,
idea.
and that's going to be the release. Yeah.
But
I like it. I think it's cool. It's a very Google way of doing stuff. It's not like snooty, but it's really kind of like, you know what? I mean, this is cool, but it's cool enough without an event. So just here's the news.
Just put it out there. You know you want it. We don't have to sell this to you that hard.
But do we want it? That's the question. It's a question I don't think I can answer yet. I'm gonna put it to you, Stephen, because I have a feeling Flo can talk about this for a second. So let's hear from Stephen first. Are you? Are you jazzed about the 6, the 9, both, or neither? We're not going to talk about the TV thing.
The 9 maybe a little, but the 6 I was looking forward to. I've been using Nexus phones for the past 2 years now. The Nexus 4 was the first phone that I bought brand new, rather than picking up some previously owned handset. And so I was really excited to keep continuing as a Nexus guy. The 5.9 inches sort of scared me off when I first heard about it, and I was willing to maybe give it a shot, but the pricing absolutely killed me. I'm not paying $600-some for a new smartphone. I can hold out. The Nexus 5 is fine. I worry that Google turned off a lot of its longtime fans, but then again, maybe it's okay with that, because does it really need people who are only sticking around because of the low pricing? I mean, if it can get people to buy it for more.
You can buy it subsidized, though, at any carrier you want.
Yeah, and it's going to be
the carrier issue was never a big stumbling block for me. It worked on T-Mobile. That's who I use. I was fine with that. It's nice that we have these new options now. I'm just worried they came at the expense of what was a really iconic part of the Nexus line. And I know you go back with the old ones, the Nexus 1, that sold for a lot more. So this is really just returning to its old ways, but we were used to it. There's going to be a period of disappointment. In a month from now, I'm sure I'll stop complaining nearly as much as I am. But
no, there absolutely is.
Hard to swallow.
That shocked me a little bit, because you're right, Stephen. It hasn't existed for that long, but it has been for 2 generations. We've equated Nexus not just with very good hardware, but with very good hardware at an absurdly low price.
And there were some leaks right near the end there that suggested it would be higher, but maybe like $500. And even then, I think I could have accepted that. It's just
what's
this
the price
up above 6 that kills me.
It's $599 for 32 gigs. Is that what it is?
I think it's $649.
I want to say it was $650.
Okay. So, Flo, what's your feeling on this? We're talking about the 6, the 9. We'll talk about in a second.
I mean, I have a story going up about this soon. I haven't.
Can we get
my editor in an hour and a half?
Can we get spoilers?
But basically, it's just that's kind of the market price for all the specs that are packed inside it. So I don't really know why everybody's flipping their lid over this. It's just kind of, and I get it. I just want to say, Stephen.
But they're all turning too large a profit. We know these things cost like $200 to make. I can understand wanting to turn 50%.
They can't directly compete with their partners. That would be unfair.
Screw the partners.
Yeah, but the partners keep Android going and keep Android having the massive global market share that it does. Like, this is all strategic. And I know it really upsets a lot of us, and I understand. And I'm virtually putting my hand on your shoulder.
There's a wonderfully consoling tone of voice right now.
Guess what? I'm not going to buy this phone because I don't have $649. Okay?
I think I'm going to be driven to like the OnePlus 2 next year, the way things are going.
Sick burn.
Yeah.
I have
people who are not
about that too, but anyway.
For people who are not familiar with the Nexus 6 spec sheet, what are we looking at, guys? The raw essentials here. There's a Snapdragon 805
Quad HD.
Quad HD at 5.9 inches or 6 inches? Doesn't matter.
Very like 5.9 in exchange. It's essentially 6.
So 6 inch at Quad HD. 805. How many? What? Probably 2 gigs of RAM.
3 gig, I think.
It's 3 gigs. Yeah.
3 gigs of RAM, and 32 gig or 64 or what's the capacities?
Yeah, 32's
32.
The lowest now, which is a really great move. I mean, don't get me wrong. Besides the screen being too big, these specs are pretty much second to none. I have very little to the lack of micro SD, but that's nothing surprising there.
Right. No, not at all.
No, the hardware seems like it should be very, very competitive. Absolutely.
There's no point in me like saving this for later because it's all I've been thinking for 3 days. So I'm just going to put it out there. What the hell is Motorola doing taking the Moto X platform, which was already too big compared to last year's, and making it, blowing it up to this size. Do you guys think this is going to be comfortable?
I don't
Looks like
want to spoil my article.
Wait, what?
I don't want to spoil my article, but like
I promise you, there are
no
like,
one's
there are
listening to
not
this
enough
anyway.
people
Don't
watching
worry.
right now, I promise you. By the time most
Maybe
people
my article later. They have to do it. That's just, they have to offer a phone for developers to start scaling their applications for bigger screen sizes. And the thing is, the phablet market, quote unquote, is it's still such a niche market. Like I think the biggest phablet market right now is in China, which doesn't really make sense because you can't get Google Play services there as it is. But it's still in China, it's only like between 8 and 11%, depending on whatever analyst you speak to. And here in the United
which
States,
way is it trending then? Is it accelerating there?
It has to be, I imagine.
China?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But that's because a lot of people, like, you know, they don't have computers. They got
They're using their smartphones as their primary
so it makes sense.
Right, so it does make sense.
They're not gluttons like us American peoples.
Right.
Everything. Oh my God.
I just think, you know, I have no real objection to a 6-inch Nexus. I think it's a little absurd, but whatever. I mean, fine, go with it. I just think that taking the efficient way from a manufacturing standpoint of just kind of scaling up an existing platform sometimes works. Obviously, it seems to be working for the Nexus 9, which looks like a blown-up Nexus 5, even though it's from a different manufacturer. I don't understand. But with the Motorola, with this kind of curvaceous thing that started out as last year's most ergonomic handset and has now become this blown-up Frankenstein, it just doesn't make sense to me. And they've stolen the dimple. They've stolen the dimple from themselves and applied it to something that's not a Moto X. I have nothing worthwhile to say. I don't want you to fool you guys, and I'm sorry for deceiving you. I'm not bringing anything meaningful to the conversation. I'm just bitching because I'm a Motorola fanboy who disagrees.
Stephen and Michael, I have a question for you, Stephen and Michael. Do you think that Motorola felt like if we don't make a bigger phone, we're not going to be able to have any sales impact? Because they did really well in the low-end markets, but that's
Moto G was
not. That's not what they. I mean, nobody wants to be. I mean, I don't think any manufacturer wants to be known specifically for making mid-range and low-end phones.
No, I worry that screen size is becoming a spec that consumers are directly comparing phones against. It used to be maybe we look at camera megapixels, or it's impossible now to look at clock speed with all the variables and cores and everything. Yep. You can say, if I'm going to pay $200 on contract, do I want a 5-inch phone or a 6-inch phone? A 6-inch phone seems like better value for your money, so that's what people are going to go to. So if you want to compete, you have to have at least a phone as big as, if not bigger than the competition. Maybe that's
look at iPhone has now Apple's offering 2 different sizes, big and bigger. So maybe all those people in the industry, they all know each other's secrets. Let's be honest. So Google probably knew that Apple was going to do the bigger phone, and they were like, let's offer something for those people out there as well, because they're still selling the Nexus 5. So whatever developer wants to develop for a regular sized phone.
What's the price on the Nexus 5 right now?
I think it's still like around $300.
It hasn't dropped, and it's still on. I wonder if it's going to remain up for sale after the Nexus 6 finally arrives, or at least goes up for pre-order at the end.
I think it is because it replaced the Nexus 4. So there's no need for like a Nexus 4 and a Nexus 5 side by side.
Right. No, there's definitely a need for a
Nexus 5 and a Nexus 6 side by side because they're two different
it makes sense for them to keep it around, but I'm asking, do we have any confirmed information on that? Do we know that?
I haven't seen.
Okay.
Dear Google.
Yeah. Get them on the horn. I like. Do you guys think, this is a good question from Dex Eve, do you think that Google alienated the hardcore Nexus fans with the price or size? Now, we already touched on that, but my question building on that is, do you guys think it matters? Is the Nexus fan base big enough, or frankly, I don't know, influential enough to affect what the Nexus program does, especially considering Flo's point that this is going to be on every carrier in the States?
I mean, Google's been drifting away from the original Nexus vision for a while here. I remember
Nexus vision has changed like 4 times.
It's like one of the major devs had an issue with Google wasn't being as forthcoming for releasing source code as they would have wanted, and then I forget who it was. He ended up leaving Google, I think, over this. And now we're getting all the new carrier support. Verizon, we're going to get sealed radio binary blobs and all this. We're drifting away from the openness, and I think there will be people, the hardcore Android dev fan holdouts who are going to be upset by this. By and large, though, I don't think that the smartphone buying public cares that much, and I don't see it affecting the bottom line.
Interestingly, go ahead, Flo. I'm sorry.
To add something, sorry.
Please.
I'm so opinionated about this.
No,
it's because I've just been reporting it for the last day. I think we're forgetting about the business market, and that is what Samsung's Galaxy Note series has been particularly good at hitting. That's why people want the bigger phone, because they want to be able to do all the stuff that, although the ease of multitasking on a bigger screen, having that stylus to do all of that stuff, right? So, and Google's trying to push more back into the enterprise now that they've added all that new stuff to Android Lollipop. So
right.
I think having a bigger phone is the smartest way to sort of integrate all of that and be like, hey, business people. Plus, offering it at all the carriers makes it easier for businesses to buy them in bulk, which is what they do with BlackBerries and iPhones. So when you buy them with a carrier, you get the big subsidy when a huge corporation buys it for 500 employees or whatever. So this will make it easier to just dole it out to employees and have all the enterprise stuff already ready outside the box. So, but I mean that's not common consumer, but it's also to get more developers to be like, yo dudes and chicks, make make apps that are really business centric, make stuff that scales to this size, make stuff that the enterprise people, the people with money, are gonna want to use our products and use our services.
It's a solid point.
That is my spiel.
I could dig it. No, I get that, and you're right. We don't cover enterprises closely, and that's
we don't, because I get it. Our readers and viewers don't particularly care about that.
Yeah.
But that's how Microsoft is still flying, because business people, enterprise.
That's true. It's just
it's a huge moneymaker.
I think something that affects that as well is that, frankly, I think for a lot of us, it's not as fun to cover. So
it's not.
it's
not, and I don't cover that, but I'm just trying to bring light to a side that is very,
underrepresented.
Yeah.
We have a good point from Pablo Maldonado here. I hear many saying that it doesn't make sense that the Nexus 6 is so big because it won't utilize the screen space like the Note series, like multi-window. Isn't it possible Android L could come out with that feature, if not now, then in the future?
Yeah. Who knows?
Possible, certainly. But are there any indications that this is anything more than a pipe dream, though? That's my question.
I mean, we've seen the evidence of what Google had been working on in the past as far as Android multi-window goes, something built right into the OS. And it's interesting, but what we've seen isn't very well developed. It was very buggy. This is going back, I think, about a year, at least 9 months, close to the start of 2014. And there's not a lot of evidence I've seen pointing to it arriving very, very soon in Android L. It's something Google seems to at least be working on, thinking about. I don't know it's a priority, though. But maybe the larger screen will start making it a priority as more users move to these larger devices.
I think that's what we've been sort of hoping for here, some of us at least. And I will say that, for as much as we talk about multi-window, when I'm carrying a Note sort of recreationally, do I use it all the time? No. But it's like the S Pen. When the opportunity arises to use it, and you don't have it, it's the most frustrating thing. It's like, oh man, I want to keep watching this video, but also somebody just said something on Twitter that I have to go respond to. It's like,
have to.
Yeah, well, Stephen, not all of us treat Twitter.com with the
lack of
disregard that you do.
Twitter is my social. Twitter is now my online social life.
Yeah, it's weird.
Twitter's my online social life too. It doesn't speak much for my online social life. Period.
Stephen, please. I'm running out of jokes to introduce you with on the podcast. Please tweet again.
I'm sorry. I thought about that. I hadn't tweeted.
That gives me a great idea for my own podcast. But anyway, let's go on.
All right. We should talk about the Nexus.
Anything else launched? Oh yeah.
We should mix and match these. Some people are actually asking about the 9. What are your opinions about the Nexus 9 being a 4x3?
That's what kills me.
An iPad for
That's
3
going to be great. It's going to be great for that size because 4.3 works really well for that larger screen size.
I really like 4:3. I mean, I still have a 4:3 monitor. I'm a huge holdout here, but I don't know if it makes as much sense on an Android device. On a tablet, yes, I like that shape a lot better, but with the apps and the media out there, it seems like
Yeah.
everything's optimized for widescreen. I can count on one hand maybe the number of significant 4.3 Android devices.
Yeah,
I don't know.
remember when we played with the Optimus View, and every time you ran
I
an
hate
app,
the View.
right? Every time you ran an app, it would like put those black bars in, or it would scale it, and either way, it looked really
Now, I
ugly.
would hope that the user experience is going to be a lot smoother on the Nexus 9 coming from Google, but still, I can't help but feel this is
doubt
like
it.
just caving to industry pressure. Oh, we got to do what the iPad's doing, or I don't even know what's the weird aspect on the Surface 3 Pro.
Wait, you guys,
3?
what is the aspect on the Shield tablet? Am I just like
On the
letting
Shield?
everyone know
16.9.
that?
It's got to be, isn't it? I don't know.
Like Googling it.
Yeah, so am I. NVIDIA.
Sorry, I'm almost wondering because you know they have that like Tigra.
No, it's 1920 by 1200. It's 1610.
Okay.
Never mind. Sorry.
By the way, my note has just informed me that I've been inactive for over 2 hours. Coach is going to kick my ass after
Oh my
this
god,
podcast.
that thing is so annoying. It's doing it to me on the plane. I'm like, bro, I can't go anywhere.
What's the phone we talked about that like calls emergency services if you don't move after a certain period of time?
Holy crap, is it like the jitterbug or something?
No, it's something like that. It was built in with like a life alert type thing. We talked about it in the last month or so.
Well, Kid Butcher's other question is, what's your favorite aspect ratio for a tablet? And for me, it varies with the platform. Like we were
Whatever
just
I can
saying.
watch
16:9.
Naruto on, that's my
Yeah,
ratio.
priorities.
I think 4 to 3 does work well for iOS, and I think it could work well for Windows even. I think that would be kind of an interesting thing to see. But yeah, for Android, it kind of threw me. I was, what we've seen of the Nexus 9. I don't know that Android is going to look too great on it. I think there will be some interesting opportunities to diversify with widgets. I think you're going to be able to like make your home screen look kind of interesting.
Yeah, I fucking love widgets, man. This is and they're so good on tablets.
I wonder if Themer will be doing anything for that. I think that's going to be interesting because I don't do icon packs,
I kind of am worried it's going to be a little big, and I wonder if something like an 8-inch, maybe $100 cheaper Nexus 9 or Nexus 8, I guess it would have to be, would have been a little more appealing. But it's not too crazy out of my desires there to make it something I wouldn't be interested in getting.
Imagine the 9-inch screen is just like super empty except for this like small icon in the corner.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I mean, what about the hardware, guys? What about the actual chassis of this thing? I mean, I said it before. This is very much like a Nexus 5 that's been blown up. And when we wanted to see, hey Jules, when we wanted to see an HTC tablet, when we've been like yelling about wanting to see a Nexus from HTC for so many years, I don't know about you guys, but for me I was saying it because I wanted a cool aluminum tablet with sweet ass boom sound.
But I mean, I haven't held one yet, so I can't say anything until I have one physically in my hand. But
we've seen the renders. It's obviously not. Yeah. I mean, this ain't no brushed aluminum thing, I mean, it's not what I expected.
I'm fine with it.
From what we're looking at right here, it's like.
I think I care more about metal on my phones than I do on tablets.
I think I care about phones more than I do tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
What do you think about the keyboard for this guy?
I can't judge it until I use it because I have serious issues with tablet keyboards, which is why I still use a MacBook Air to do everything. Because
I have issues with laptop keyboards.
Well, I actually use this big ass thing. Which is awesome,
Flo has a big old keyboard. That's awesome.
No, it's a solar-powered Logitech one. Y'all have to get one. They're the best.
No way. Model M till I die.
Okay, whatever.
Was that what you were talking about on Twitter? I was wondering what the model M was. All right, so we're going to talk about the Nexus 9. We're going to talk about the Nexus 6 so much over the next few weeks that I think we should probably
keep this train moving.
What, Flo?
Don't exhaust ourselves.
Yeah, let's not overextend ourselves.
This is going to be such a crazy, like, fall and spring are always so crazy in the gadget world. In the spring you have all the flagships coming out, and in the fall you have kind of all like the follow-up devices that everyone's like, trying to put out before Christmas. So
holiday season.
Speaking of fall devices, we have another launch coming up a little bit later this month.
What is it?
Oppo is announcing its N3.
Yes.
N2. Who needs an N2? Moving right from the N1 to the N3. And the latest, the company has been positively doing everything it can to talk about this phone other than officially launching it. It's been on social media like constantly for the past month and a half now, dropping not just like general teasers, but specific features and revealing like final renders of the phone. It showed us the rotating cameras making a return from the N1, and we finally got some details on the specifics. It's going to be a 16 megapixel shooter with a big old 1/2.3 inch sensor. Well, not that big old, but bigger than the Note 4, I guess, which has a 1/2.6. I finally looked that up. In one of
oh, nice. You found it. Good.
Yeah, and it was the same as the Galaxy S5, so that's not any reason for performance.
Okay.
Something else, but
this rotating camera on the N3,
this is the answer to the selfie problem.
Yeah, it does. It eliminates it completely. But this camera module also has a stitched leather detail on it.
That's
that
so
makes
weird.
No damn sense to me.
No,
I don't know about you
especially because these are going to be metal phones. At least the body made of metal. Two different kinds. There's going to be options here. Why go with this plasticky last year's Samsung
It's funny,
model?
not to cast aspersions or anything, but it's very funny to see Samsung do like Galaxy Alpha and Note 4 with the chamfered edges, 2 years after that debuted on another manufacturer, and now you've got Oppo basically ripping off the stitched leather thing a year after that came out.
And it's all topsy-turvy, man.
Maybe everyone should just come up with new ideas. Maybe we should try that for a moment.
But this is not coming to the U.S., is it?
We don't know. Chinese. It's tough to predict what these manufacturers
I never get to touch these phones or use them because we don't really touch global phones just because our audience is very much stateside.
Does that frustrate you? Because your audience still must certainly be interested in those headlines that are like, look at this cool phone that you can't have. Like, I feel like that's a massive segment.
I don't know. That's a I don't know.
Policy thing. What about you? Are you excited about this?
I'm on Verizon. I don't even get like half the phones.
Yeah, that is weird, by the way. Tell me, what about the N3? I mean, does this kind of thing excite you at all? Like, are you irritated that you can't get your hands on this, or
no? Because I think the Chinese market is so different than what we need over here, and sometimes I think it's kind of unfair for people to be like, well, the Chinese market is getting this phone, blah blah blah, but why aren't we getting this here? It's because what works here doesn't, what works in other areas doesn't really work here. I mean, for God's sake, all the kids in England are using BlackBerry still. Like,
market differences are
it's
hilarious.
Just,
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have Jaime Rivera on the ground there in Singapore to cover that. When is that launch, Stephen?
29th.
Ooh, that's coming close. That's right before Halloween. That's pretty cool. All right, listen. We got to do this because it's in the headline, and I can't change the headline. So we got to talk about this. It's Apple released a couple iPads. Now, you may be wondering why we're a little bit irritated about this one, listeners. And we're not. I mean, first of all, Flo covers Android entirely, so this isn't her department. But Flo,
my buddies at Macworld do cover.
Opinions. Yes.
You cover iPad, my lovely buddies of who I'm also buddies with in real life.
And the iPad is, as we've said many, many millions of times, is a wonderful tablet. It is, if not the best tablet you can buy today, one of the best tablets you can buy today from a user experience standpoint.
Have you used the Tab S? Because let me tell you, that thing is pretty BA.
Oh,
yeah,
AMOLED.
Yeah, I don't ever want to talk about a Samsung tablet until they decide to make good software for it and also stop making them feel like total crap. But yeah, no, I've used it. Yeah, I'm not impressed. The iPad is a wonderful little device, and it got a little bit more wonderful, maybe. What's your feeling on this, newsman? Tell us the things.
We got a new iPad Air. It's got a nice processor. It brings Touch ID fingerprint scanning to the tablet. It's super duper thin, and there's a new gold color. That's the most interesting news to come out of this launch this week.
No. It's worth it.
Well, hold on a second.
Google doesn't have events for everything. It doesn't need it. It
just drops.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm doing like the
we
end
should
of
make clear that this event was not just an iPad event. It was for computers. It was for.
If we had a broader scope, we might have been a little more captivated by it.
Right, and actually I was captivated by it, as I said on the roundtable yesterday. And by the way, if you're feeling a little shortchanged, if you've sat through 2 hours of this podcast and you really want to hear us talk about Apple in a really intense way, we talked about it for 35 minutes yesterday on the roundtable, so check that out. That's still at pocketnow.com. Go see what's up. Really, I'm excited about it because I'm going to buy a new Mac soon, and that this event was very interesting to me in that regard. But from an iPad standpoint, you know, there's, as you say, Stephen, there's just not a whole lot different here. There's a lot more power under the hood, but I feel like
I appreciate the Air 2. I think this is a valuable step forward for Apple's tablet lineup. The Mini 3, on the other hand, this guy, what is the point? $100 for a fingerprint scanner? That's a tough sell.
Yeah, it's the Mini 3, I think everyone is sort of hitting it on the head when they say that the Mini 2 is the thing to buy right now because it's $100 cheaper and the only thing you're missing out on is gold and the Touch ID. And Touch ID is pretty awkward on this big form factor anyway. So, you know, yeah, I'm with you. I think the iPad Air is certainly the star of the show, but the real star of the whole
event... Or you could buy 3 Nexus 7s.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted to, but you couldn't run on the Nexus 7s the kind of things they were demoing at the event. The Pixelmator stuff,
what, Michael?
The Photoshop replacement app that Pixelmator is pushing, where they did that awesome demo where they just painted out this entire giant animal and its shadow and kept the sand pattern behind it intact. On a tablet,
how
yes,
can you do
run Photoshop? I've run Photoshop in Android, and I hate running it in Android and iOS. But and then what was the other one? What was the other app that they demoed? They had a sweet. The guys had awesome accents, and they were demoing something. I don't know.
And I couldn't watch the video. You saw.
By the way, I scheduled a doctor's appointment yesterday during the iPad event, so this is how
That's how captivating it was.
Of course, you are not the most unbiased source for excitement level.
Let me just put it out. I did cover Apple products for 3 years, and I also covered Android as an Apple user during that. So and I got a lot of hate tweets about that.
Yeah.
And I love Apple computers, and I use them for my daily life. But
I feel like we're all in the same boat. We all use Apple on the desktop, or most of us do. Not you, Stephen, but most of us use Apple on the desktop. But when it comes to mobile,
I had a gaming PC, but I don't really have time for that anymore, so I put it in the closet. Sorry. Guys, I have to actually take off. I have to go work
and stuff. I understand. Well, listen, you have donated
that article that I need you guys to read because
I can't wait to read that. After having been teased with that content so mercilessly, I can't wait to see what your conclusions are on the Nexus 6. Flo, I'm going to say to the end of the show, listen, tell everyone where they can find that article and where they can find you.
You guys, you can find me on www.greenbot.com. You can also find me on pcworld.com and techhive.com. We're all sister sites. And you can find me on Twitter at @OhThatFlow.
I've been looking at your banner image there, and it took me way too long to realize that's what it said. I'm reading it. Off that flot? What? Off that flow.
Oh, that flow.
I eventually parsed it, but cobwebs had to drift away.
Fun fact, my first boss, Will Smith, formerly of Maximum PC, now of Tested.com.
Will Smith.
He's the reason I have because I think one time he said, "Oh, that flow," and then so I was like, "That's a good handle."
And were you right? You were like just about to hit the register button on Twitter.com, and you had like a really lame screen name.
Well, actually, no. My first Twitter name was Emotion Riot, so I had to change it.
That's a very awesome 16-year-old Twitter handle. I like that.
It was really. Thanks, guys.
Flo, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Let's have you on again. All right.
Yes. Ciao.
Bye.
Stephen, it sounds to me like you and I just got a golden ticket to get ourselves out of this show in a manner that is somewhat quick. We're at the 2-hour mark very quickly. Hopefully Flo remembers to get her audio file to Jules, as he asked me to remind her, and then I forgot. Anyway, the iPad Air 2 is announced. The iPad Mini 3 is announced. Don't buy the iPad Mini 3. You should buy the iPad Mini 2.
And buy the 32 gig Mini 2. I feel like that's the best value because it's only 50 more than the 16 instead of the 100 more that you pay for the other models for their capacity bump.
Yeah, and I want to say
anyway.
The Air 2, for those who are actually taking this thing seriously, and I feel like 90% of our audience just wants us to move away from Apple, but it's important, but I don't think we're going to see how important the iPad Air 2 is or isn't until we can actually see it develop a little bit, see in the real world how the extra power of that, what is it, the A8X, Stephen?
Yes. A8X with M8 coprocessor.
The M8 motion coprocessor, and how that laminated. Oh God, that the laminated display.
Love the sound of this.
So cool. It's taken too long to get to the iPad, but thank goodness it's finally here. Yes, no, Apple's not first to do it, but wow, it's going to be really excellent, even though it's overdue.
For all the trash we talk about the iPad, Apple really has been pushing limits so far as display technologies go. With the components it uses to build the iPad display. So definitely something to look forward to seeing in the flesh.
And another rare addition on the display, the anti-reflective coating, which is supposed to reduce reflectivity by something like 50%. So maybe all those people who want to read in the middle of the summer on the beach on their iPads will finally be able to do it.
Yeah, who needs to crank the brightness all the way up?
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. I want to say we are going to be reviewing the iPad Air 2, so don't worry. We'll be a little late on it, but we will most definitely review it, so stay tuned.
And the Mini 3, maybe?
No, not the Mini 3. Not touching that. No. Sony Xperia Z3 Compact review. Speaking of reviews, that is up. I wanted to let everybody know that that is available. You can go read it now. It's at pocketnow.com.
And the Z3 review.
4 review. And the Z3 review is up too?
Yeah, this morning.
Terrific. Wow, it's a 2-review day. If you like reviews, go to pocketnow.com.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a new segment. It's 3 episodes old. Steven's got some stuff to talk about that's pretty deep, if you ask me. This is a segment called Dial F for Fail. It's a segment from our top news wrangler about injustice, misdeeds, and general foolishness within the mobile industry. Today's topic, smartphone companies. Fighting the good fight? ? A look at encryption, privacy, tax loopholes, and right versus wrong in the mobile space. Steven, what's going on?
Fair warning, I'm going to go a bit off the rails here, and I'm drifting into rambling territory. That's because this isn't just one singular issue that I'm complaining about here. This is a larger scope involving multiple companies, governmental agencies, so bear with me, if you will. We know security has been a big concern of smartphone users lately, and we've been seeing the companies behind these platforms start treating it a little more seriously. Apple has been baking encryption into its devices at a very low level. With the release of Android 5.0 Lollipop, Google's doing the same thing. And one of the consequences of the stronger encryption they're putting on phones is that it prohibits the companies behind these platforms from easily pulling information off of our devices at the request of government agencies, whether that's just asking nicely, giving them a warrant. These companies want to set up so that they can't abide by these orders. The encryption is too strong. The data is in our hands rather than theirs. They're just wiping their hands of the situation. Now, FBI Director James Comey has been talking to the press about his frustrations with this, and he's calling on these companies to try to find a better way to do things, talking about a golden key or some sort of managed system that would still allow them to offer law enforcement access to user data. And he's painting this as they're going out of their way to make it harder for law enforcement. And my first complaint is directed at the FBI in this case, and not the smartphone companies, who I feel are in the right here. They are looking out for their end users. The one thing that I don't think Comey gets here is that it's not in the business of smartphone companies to make things easier for law enforcement. Certainly, law enforcement isn't out there making things easier for smartphone companies. This is a neither here nor there situation. And asking that they compromise security just to make their job easier, I don't see why anyone would want to heed to these demands. We don't see car manufacturers building cars that police officers can remotely disable when they're in a pursuit. Why would they want to do that? They have to, find their own ways to solve these issues. Michael, you're raising your hand. You have a point?
I have a question. I mean, do you think that the carriers' stated motivation matches their actual motivation with regard to this? I mean, certainly carriers in the United States have never been known for just selflessly standing up for the privacy rights or any rights of their customers, so why are they taking a stand on this?
This isn't the carriers we're talking about. These are the companies behind the platforms. This is baking encryption into the phone. So the data is encrypted before it even flies over the wireless networks. I do think there is a cover your ass aspect to this, like Apple and its whole hacking issue recently. If it can put stronger encryption on the phones and keep user data secure, then it's less likely to be involved in bad press where there's some hack, someone else's data gets out there. That's also another issue relevant to this FBI idea that there should be some backdoor master key solution to get access to this data. If there is, encryption isn't designed to work that way. The sort of encryption we have on our phones. If you want to give someone else access to the data, you're inherently going to compromise the system. You have to build weaknesses into the encryption. And while ideally only the good guys would be able to use those compromises and get access when they have the legal authority to do so, there's no reason to think that very smart hackers would not be able to do similar things and get in through the own holes. So it's just a bad idea of making everyone less secure just to make law enforcement a little easier. And it is not the responsibility of these companies to be helping out with law enforcement. This sort of brings me to the counter side to this. I'm just thinking a little about corporate responsibility and what it means to be a good smartphone company. Now, I'm rejecting this notion that a smartphone company needs to be kowtowing to the demands of law enforcement in order for it to be a good corporate citizen. Its responsibility is to its users, after all.
Agreed.
What makes this other issue a little complicated, involving the tax situation. So these companies, especially Apple, Google, Samsung, even though it's not in the U.S., but these companies are raking in billions and billions of dollars. And the idea, the social contract, is we have corporations making money. They give some of that money back to the governments as tax revenue. We rely on this money. It helps society as a whole, not just smartphone users. So it really ticks me off when I hear about these companies going to somewhat elaborate efforts in order to shield their finances from the scrutiny of taxes. Apple is probably one of the most visible examples of this, taking advantage of something called the double Irish, which the Irish corporate tax is already very low, but the situation right now allows companies to set up multiple shell companies in Ireland, whereas one of them gets the income, it's then funneled off to another, and the end result of this is paying even lower taxes than these governments are asking for in the first place, to say nothing of the funneling money offshore.
It all sounds remarkably shady, but it is technically legal.
Well, for now, Ireland started to close down this loophole. Beginning next year, companies will no longer be able to set up new arrangements like this, and by 2020, they want to backtrack and remove the ability for companies like Apple, who are already doing this. I think there's even an EU issue where they're going after Apple for money they feel it wrongfully got by not handing over to the taxes. So this is a situation where I feel if the government's going to go after smartphone companies for not doing everything they can to be good corporate citizens, the law enforcement angle is not the way to go. This is something that, in the end, or the way it's being done now with the strong encryption of the phones, is benefiting society as a whole. The few bad actors out there, the specter of terrorists, the drug dealers, very, very small compared to the large group of smartphone users as a whole. So obviously I want the smartphone companies to be defending the big user base there. Then on the flip side with this tax thing, if they're dodging, I feel like the government has to be going after them more. This is a bigger problem because when they're avoiding paying this money, that's hurting everyone. Just a little bit, yeah, but this is money not going to roads, schools, all the good stuff that we like. So if you're going to, start shaking your war stick at these companies, go after them for the tax dodging, not for the encryption. That's my piece.
This is the only thing missing from that. And by the way, I completely agree with your
position. I told you
it
would be rambling, didn't I?
You did, but it was well put together. And the only thing missing from this whole segment, Stephen, is that you need to have an end phrase. You need to say,
and that's
the way I see it.
Yeah.
Similarly.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Thank you. I wish that I had more to contribute, but I agree with you. I'm glad to see this tax loophole is closing, but then again, I wonder exactly what ramifications this will have for where companies opt to do business and in what manner.
Yeah, it needs to be regulated on a global basis. I mean, the fact that they're going international to hide the money in the first place speaks to insufficient controls over where the money is declared and all that.
Right. Well, I think we please, listeners, this is the kind of discourse that I actually sort of want to encourage, because that's not exactly our area, but it is very important stuff that often gets swept under the rug because it's not as sexy as talking about, like, aluminum versus steel on phones. So if you have some feedback specifically on that matter, please leave in the comments on the podcast.
Yeah, drop that.
Yeah. Stephen monitors the podcast post for interesting elements of conversation. I monitor the comment threads for people I can ban. So there's that. No, I'm joking. I'm not. I'm half joking. Let's talk about Q&A. Google said even if your screen is off, says Levi Sands, you can say OK Google on devices with digital signal processing support. Does this mean that for all Snapdragon 800 or above?
I've been wondering this same thing. They keep saying devices like the Nexus 6 and Nexus 9. I'm like, Google, the Nexus 5 should support this too if you just friggin' enabled it. Is this going to happen? We don't know. I haven't heard anything.
No, either. I mean, I guess if I look at it dispassionately and not with the, the furious rage of a Moto X fanboy, this has to be inevitable, right? I mean, Android's constantly looking for differentiators. Touchless control, as it was once known on the Moto X, now it's called Moto Voice, is a very cool differentiator, and it's very handy to be able to call your phone from across the room. So why not implement it on other Android phones? But what?
Well, I can see implementing on devices going forward. There's also a reason not to bring it to older devices, especially if you're not going to be selling new ones anymore. Why put all that effort into it when you can use this as a carrot and a stick, luring people to new devices?
Agreed. Completely agree. I think that's exactly what will happen. And plus, it's not... Yes, the capability exists in older phones like the Nexus 5 to do this. But yeah, imagine all the work you have to do to make it to look at, all right, so this is, we didn't really design it for this, so how do we hack it in there?
Why it wasn't there in the first place. But.
Right, you have to have those answers and so. No, it just seems messy. And you want people on newer hardware for a variety of reasons, so yeah, just build it into the new stuff. That said, I have to say I'm a little sad about this because I felt like this was one of those standouts that Motorola brought that was one of the many reasons to get a Motorola phone over another one.
This also feels like a bit of a failure of smartphone platform engineering to begin with. We have all these phones with very similar hardware running the same SoC. Why isn't there an easy way to just have a drop-in solution that will work in all Snapdragon 800 devices? The fact that they can't easily do that is a problem in itself.
Architecturally, I think that would be elegant and smart. I agree, but I have to say that I like the idea that certain devices can do things that others can't, and that it's not always
also an appeal to this Android One way of doing things.
Right, but like that's never going to be. Android is never going to be like the iPhone model, and nor should it. You know what I mean? I mean, I think part of Android's strength is its diversity, and for as much as a lot of people hate on skins a lot, there are a lot of things that third-party UIs can do on Android phones that stock Android either can't or won't, and it adds value to those phones, and that's just software. I mean, there's a lot of hardware standouts too. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like there has to be some software equivalent of something like the Project Aura, with a modular sliding into place things where we should be able to have components that are more easily interchangeable between devices in spite of slightly differing hardware. I do not have the engineering chops to speak to whether or not this is even remotely possible. Maybe Joe should be on here if we want to bring this up again. But
Joe should definitely be on here if we want to.
Should always be on here.
Yeah. Kevin Alonso asked this question yesterday on the roundup or the whatever the hell it was, the roundtable.
Editorial, yeah.
And we didn't answer it. Apple and Google want to replace your wallet with their respective mobile payment options. True, but you can't show ID via phone.
So.
Do you think Apple and Google will allow you to put your ID or license on your phone, and will cities accept ID via iPhone? I think this is a very interesting question.
Speaking of getting in bed with the government.
Yeah, now this is a hairy, nasty bramblebush of a thing that I don't want to get into because we could speculate about this for hours. And
flashes back to Real ID and all that 10 years ago.
Exactly right, and between local municipalities, federal stuff, and then different countries' regulations about this stuff, it's going to take a long time to figure this out. I think it's probably inevitable at one point, just like I do think it's inevitable for wallets to move to the smartphone, like most things.
Yeah, if this happens, it's going to be led by the governments. They're going to create new digital IDs. Only after those exist and are in wide circulation, then we might start seeing companies integrate this into their existing online wallet thing. It's like these companies didn't invent the credit card. Credit cards were out there. They're just giving us a new way to present that same data. When the merchant processes one of these things, it still goes through like a credit card. You pay with Google Wallet, you see that instant MasterCard number on the receipt. So this a long way off, and smartphone companies, I don't see them leading the way with this.
I just had a very Sequesty or other sort of low budget,
like Sequest, wouldn't you?
low budget sci-fi future vision of what's going to happen when phones finally have IDs on them. There's going to be a whole market of people who like a black market of people who specialize in making fake phone IDs, just like you make fake IDs now. Like, fake driver's license, whatever, so that you can drink when you're 15, you want to buy beer at the gas station, and there's going to be people who code fake IDs on phones.
Now, the one thing I could see this happening earlier rather than just IDs is passports, because we already have in the U.S. passports with that RFID chip in there.
Right out.
Integrate that into the phone. I mean, you still have other security measures on the passport itself and the printing that aren't so easily duplicated on the phone, but maybe that's where this could get kind of a foot in the door.
Yeah, and there's ways to do it. You can do it with your watermarks. Like I used a phone app for train tickets that has an animated watermark on it. That just it's a very simple thing, but it tells the conductor that it's not just a screenshot of an old ticket.
Does it complain if you root the phone and try to run the app?
Probably. It probably would. But I don't think it's that sophisticated. But it probably should self-destruct. But it probably does. Yeah. Oh my God. The BlackBerry Passport question, I say it every week, but we'll review it if they send us a review unit, folks. So thank you for asking. Thank you for your interest. I'll still do it. I've said it so many times. Yeah, but I don't think they'll send us a review unit. But hey, whatever. If Windows Phone solves the app gap problem, can they stand a chance in the phone world? We haven't talked about this very often. We're going to talk about this in listener mail. It's not. It's a more complicated issue than that. And we're actually going to get to that, Omar, in the listener mail quite a bit. Jules is desperately trying to move us along with the.
I noticed you're
He's like, listener mail.
Sped up quite a bit.
I want to do listener mail. Come on, guys, let's listener mail.
Let's talk to the Micro Machine guy for the rest of the podcast.
All right, Jules, have it your way. Sound the damn bong bong.
Bong.
And let's do this thing. Listener mail 1 is from Jacob Kraft. I'll read it. Hey guys, I'm just wondering if you are at all concerned about the way the Nexus line is heading. With the Nexus 9 rumored to be retailing at $400 for the base model and the 6 for probably well above that. This is an old email.
Oh yeah.
Do you think the spirit of an inexpensive way to pure Android on good hardware could be gone? I run a 4 and a 7 as my daily drivers, but I don't think I'll get a 6 and 9. Thanks so much. Keep up the good work. You guys are my source for all things pocketable in the world of tech.
Jacob, you and me, we're just.
Yeah, Jacob, we covered this actually before in the show. So if you've been listening to the show or watching the show, you know that we've actually gone over this a lot. And I don't think there's anything new to be said. But Stephen, is there a quick way to encapsulate our position on this?
I don't know. I am thinking the one possibility here that comes to mind for seeing devices like this, even with Google moving on to higher prices and sort of like making these new Nexus models like the Android Silver, or at least what those were rumored to be, this full price stock Android. High-end hardware, but just not quite the affordable Nexus we were used to. Android One. I mean, right now it's only in India. It's spreading to other nations. I don't think it's coming to the West anytime soon, but something like that, a standard platform for close to stock Android. Maybe we'll get it with GPE. We still don't know what's happening with GPE in the future. There's been some hints that maybe that S5 could finally arrive, but Google has to come up with something, I feel, because if you're just going to drive consumers who have previously been relying on these Nexus devices as their affordable, pure Android phones, if they're going to drive them to other affordable phones of the same level, they're going to probably not get the same sort of software experience they're looking for, and something has to fill that gap. I don't know if that's custom ROMs. I don't know if that's companies like OnePlus with custom ROMs, CyanogenMod. Something's got to give. I'm not sure what it is right now.
I don't know either, and I think we're going to find out once we review this thing. I think that's going to factor heavily into both our 6 and our 9 coverage, and we'll have to see what the future holds for that. Jacob, if you just forwarded to the if you fast forwarded the listener mail just to hear our response, go back and listen to the Nexus 6 discussion we covered.
Just listen to the whole podcast. It's fun.
Yeah, just listen to the whole thing. It's only 2 hours and frickin' 20 minutes long. Stephen, you want to read the next one, or you want me to get that one?
We have Stephen from Hungary. Oh, great name, man. Writes, Dear Pocketnow team, you're doing an awesome job in every front, and Jules is making some great videos. Shout out to Jules.
Woot.
Keep up the good work here, and keep him. Okay. Second, I would like to thank Mr. Joe Levi for suggesting to me this time last year to buy a Nexus 5 to replace my Nexus 4 because it's future-proofing. He was right. For my usage, the new phones, especially the Nexus 6, are not that big of a difference compared to the jump from the N4 to the N5. Yes, specs are better, but the improvements are not astronomical. What do you guys think? Geez, I kind of disagree there. I don't know about you, Michael, but it feels to me like the gap between the Nexus 5 and Nexus 6, and even ignoring the price issue, I kind of feel like that's a bigger move than the 4 to 5.
Yeah, well, 4 to 5 was significant on paper. I mean, there was LTE, which was cool. There was
5 looked a lot better than the 4.
Yeah, there's optical image stabilization. It looked a lot better.
It didn't really do that much in the end. I don't know there's a big camera performance difference between the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 5.
No, exactly right. Yeah. So I think that practically speaking, yeah, the N5 to N6 jump has the potential to be much bigger, but until we have the device in hand.
The screen size, I think, makes it, even ignoring resolution, just the display size difference.
Yeah. It's a totally different feeling. It almost puts it into a different category. I mean, we talked about the definition of phablets before, and however you define it, you can't deny that that is a significant jump from 5 inches to 6 compared to from, what was it, 4.7 to 5?
Yeah.
Nexus 4, Nexus 5. So, yeah. I want to say, Stephen.
The way you use the phone different.
Yeah.
Hold it and all that.
Stephen, you did a bait and switch on us. I loved his subject line was no questions, just thanks. Then he ended his email with a question. Stephen, you're tricky. You're tricky, and I like it. Come work for us. Thank you for the message, and I'll go ahead and read the last one here. This is from Michael Allen. Hey, Pocketnow. Last week, my girlfriend bought an LG G3 after using a Galaxy S2 for about 3 years. My question, have any of you used a device for longer than the typical 2 years? Was there a phone you loved so much that you couldn't find it in your heart to put it down, even though you knew there were many more powerful devices on the market?
Michael, were you just choosing which males to run on the show because they had our names?
Yeah, one from Stephen, one from Michael. You
Yeah.
read it, Stephen. Michael will read this. Yeah, it's synergy.
It's easier this way.
Yeah. So I've said this a couple times before. The longest I've kept a phone, pretty much any phone, at least since I started carrying smartphones, is 1 year. That's very long for me, and I did that. I think I've only done that like 3 times. It was the Moto Q back in 2007.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, the Palm Pre in 2009, of course, and the Moto X. Actually, I didn't get rid of my Moto X until I got the new Moto X. So yeah, those are the ones for me that stand out. And 1 year for me is just absurdly long. Even when I wasn't in this business, I would find the money to do it, even when I didn't really have money.
Yeah, I've been sticking to the 1 year upgrade cycle myself. I'm getting a little nervous here, not being sure. I'm not getting a Nexus 6. I can almost certainly say that. And I don't really feel the need to upgrade just yet, but there's this voice in the back of my head saying I should be out there looking for new devices. Maybe I'll wait until after CES sometime in the spring to think about this a little more in depth. But no, I've never had a smartphone I carry for that long. I keep my dumb phones for until they die, and then I probably buy the exact same model and try to keep using it. I have a Nokia 2355i for Verizon that's, gotta be 6-7 years old at this point, and I would not trade that in for anything.
Do you still use it for voice calls?
Absolutely.
What do you have? 2 SIMs, or do you just swap the? No, you can't swap the SIM. It's Verizon.
No, it's on Verizon. Yeah, but I guess the reception for T-Mobile is so god awful out here. I can barely get a voice call to come through.
That's awesome. You tell me this once every. I always forget, but I think that's great. I want to do a feature piece whenever we have a slow week, which will probably be sometime in June, and I want to do a feature piece on the world's best dumb phone that you can buy right now. I want to know what it is.
I was watching the new season of Homeland on Showtime, and one of the guys had one of those really nice Nokia dumb phones he threw in a swimming pool. I'm like, I could get on board with that.
Yeah, I think we should bring dumb phones back. I think it's important.
Yeah.
But I think more important is that we get the hell out of here.
Oh, thank God.
This has been the longest podcast ever. I want to, Brad and Flo, I loved having them on. I think that was great. I think what I'll do in the future.
Kudos to them for sticking with it as long as they did.
They were so freaking awesome. They were champs for sticking with us for much longer than they agreed to, by the way. And Stephen, you're a champ for sticking with me for longer than you agreed to. After proofreading my review. Thank you for that as well.
No.
And I want to make the point that I think in the future what we'll do is bring on one guest at a time, maybe not do dual guests, I'm not sure. But there are people who, for every person who complains about us going too long, there are always like 3 or 4 who actually write in and say, it needs to be longer. So no matter how long we go, it's never long enough. For most
we need like
people.
a chess clock or something if when we're talking to keep us from going too long.
Actually. Or just a more effective host.
Oh, yeah, 6
but I want to say I'm not complaining about that, by the way. I really appreciate the support. The people who write in and say, like, longer. I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God they're still listening. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. But my voice is starting to go, so I'm going to start to talk a little bit about Ali Spagnola. She makes the song you hear right behind my voice. It's called Radiation. It's a ringtone from Android smartphones of yore, but it's also a full-length song, and it's radical. Ali Spagnola is an artist who once stopped by the Pocketnow Weekly podcast for an interview. She has millions of fans around the world. She could always use one more. YouTube.com/AliSpags. Her website, alispagnola.com. On Twitter, she is Ali Spagnola. All of it is linked in the description below. That's going to do it. Finally, for this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly, which I believe is our longest ever. And as always, it's produced by Jules Wong, who talks about gaming ethics, NFC, and dandruff shampoo at Greenpoint0 on Twitter. Also, be sure to find the hosts on social media. Steven will tweet the occasional virtual boy selfie at Steven Schenk. Flo demonstrates her mastery of the all-caps tweet assault at OhThatFlo. Brad posts disappointed dad photos of Tim Cook at Phone Wisdom, and I share midday headlines and midnight regrets at Captain Two Phones. Pocketnow itself is also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Google+, and if you enjoy the podcast, please spread the word. Leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Xbox, wherever podcasts are heard. As always, we thank you so much for listening. We thank our sponsor one last time, Themer, and we'll be back with more mobile tech talk next week.
Maybe with Taylor Martin.
Maybe.
He's got to